Today, I caught my dad with a suspicious text from another woman, putting me in a situation where I not only demanded that my dad tell my mom about this, but I also pushed things even further by forcing my dad to confess to my mom, resulting in some of the most shocking news I've ever heard in my life, where my dad has basically been cheating on my mom for about 3 months now, putting me in a situation where I'm not sure if I made the wrong choice because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I'm a 29-year-old guy with no real social life. My only social exposure is online friends I've made in video games and my immediate family. I like going out to dinner with my grandmother and my dad from my father's side, and in fact, we went to a local restaurant. While we were eating and chatting specifically about current political events, I glanced over and I caught my dad getting a text message from someone who I will call Abby for the sake of the story. I didn't get the full context, but it was on Snapchat, and her message said something about loving him so much and thanking him, with something else written about someone who we will call Dan. Now again, I'm sorry, but I didn't get to see it fully, honestly, but I know my dad, and I know what is and isn't okay with my parents. I really wanted to ask about it, but wasn't sure if it was okay, because it felt a little invasive. However, I felt burdened with the knowledge, and I didn't think it was okay to ignore it. Later, we dropped my grandma off, and we were walking to our respective cars when I stopped him and I asked him, "Hey, I'm sorry if this is awkward, but who's Abby?" He then looked at me and said, "What do you mean?" But I told him I saw a woman message him, and that he replied about going out with family. Now, I guess I can't really convey this clearly, but I know my dad. In other scenarios, he would immediately tell me what's going on. I mean, I gave him pretty obvious information, but here he was playing dumb, and it kind of solidified my beliefs and my fears. It almost felt like it was a confession, but he was trying to play this game where it's like, "Oh, but can you make me say it?" So I told him that I saw another woman say, "I love you." He took a second to think and said, "I'll tell you later when I start driving." So I said, okay. Like, to me, that was progress and acknowledgement. So I got in my car, he got in his, and I started driving off. After like maybe 5 minutes, I decided, okay, I guess I'll just call him. Once I rang, he picked up and said hi, and if it's important, he literally answered the phone like this was the first time we spoke that day. Like, I was expecting him to kind of know where to start the conversation, but it was just hello, like it was some kind of surprise. Anyways, I asked him, "Hey, I need to know what the text was about." He then said to me, "What text?" And I was getting anxious, and I told him the one about Abby. He let out a sigh and said, "Abby's an ex of mine, and she started talking to me one day about how her husband divorced her. She was confiding in me about the divorce." I then asked him, "Well, does mom know about this?" And he responded kind of hesitantly, "Well, no." So I told him, "Well, that's something I think mom would want to know about, because that's not normal. You're married, dude." He then just said, "Oh, I know," and did kind of like a nervous giggle. Now, at this time, I felt dissatisfied because my dad is my hero. I really look up to him. He's always been this get the job done kind of guy. He's silent and observant. He is also my stepdad, and it wasn't the best at first, but he really shined to me over the years, and it was hurting to see him kind of like dance around the issue like this. Like any other time, even with sensitive information in the family, he speaks up immediately, clearly, and wholly, and this just felt wrong. So I pushed him, saying, "I feel like this may be overstepping, but as much as this is your wife, she's also my mom, and it would make me feel much better if you told this person was chatting with you, because I'm sure over 2 decades isn't worth the sneaking around like this. Like, if you just told her, 'Hey, my ex messaged me, what do you make of this?' she would probably understand, but knowing that you're talking to another woman you once had a romance with and keeping it from her, that would honestly hurt a lot." He then said he knew and that he will, and at this point I felt happy, so I just left it at that. I later got home, but I guess my mom asked my dad to go out and pick up my sister, who was probably out somewhere. I'm honestly not sure. I then asked her something about her day and stuff, but then I decided to put up a safety measure. I told her, "Hey mom, this is gonna sound scary in like an anxious way, but please don't panic because I need you to listen to me." She then said to me, "Okay, what's up?" And it's here that I told her I encountered something today, and I told dad to tell you about it. I said to her, "It's not something you should lose sleep over. Just know that I expect dad to tell you something when he's home. Let's give it until like maybe Saturday. Just let me know if he says anything or not, and trust me, if he tells you, you'll know. But please don't tell him that I called you." She then said to me, "Okay," and I told her I loved her and to sleep well. Now, for some additional context, our dinner was at like 7 o'clock p.m., and I saw the text at some point halfway through it, and we left at about 8 o'clock p.m. Then we dropped my grandma off at around 8:45, and that's when I confronted my dad. I then got home at around 9 o'clock, and I called my mom pretty much as soon as I got to the door. So I'm sitting and I'm waiting, and 10 o'clock eventually rolls around. I then text my mom if he said anything, and she says no. For reference, my dad goes to bed at about 10 o'clock every night for work. But with all the mounting stress and the pressure behind this, I kind of cracked, because the next thing I knew, I was putting on my jacket, and I texted my mom, "Look, don't go to bed, I'm coming over." I know I said to her, "Let's wait until Saturday," but I felt compelled to confront this situation right now. To me, him not saying anything was cowardly. Like, this is not what my dad would have done. This is isn't standing on business. This is evasion, and at this point, I just drove over. I parked on the street by their house, and I used my key to let myself in. When I came in, my mom was already in the living room expecting me. I then asked my mom where Dad was, and she said that he's in bed. I said to her, I need him to come downstairs and that there needs to be a talk of some kind. Now, my mom, who I told not to worry, clearly was shocked because I'm acting a little shaken up myself, and not like someone who thinks this is normal and nothing to get scared about. Anyway, she eventually calls him down. Well, I look at my dad and I say to him, listen, this is my mom. You need to tell her. But it's here that my dad had the nerve to say, tell her what? And he said it in an irritated tone. Now, I won't lie, I got really scared, as I don't think I've ever stood up to my dad before. There wasn't a reason to, but it's honestly like standing up to an animal, like I was facing down with a lion or something like that. But I thought to myself that I won't be pushed away from this because it was eating me up inside. So I stood on business. I said to him, you need to tell mom about the text messages I saw on your phone at dinner. And it's here that my mom snapped her head towards my dad. Now, I think my dad kind of buckled under the pressure and started off by saying, well, about 3 months ago, Abby started messaging me. And while talking, my mom looked over at me and with a concerned expression and the softest voice, she said to me, it's okay, you can go home, I will handle this. And my God, I started getting all emotional because this felt like a situation where she knew about this and she simply didn't want me to be here when things went down. So I looked back at my dad, who's still looking at the ground, and I started to feel the weirdest blend of sad and angry. And at this point, I just left. I eventually drove home and here I am. So seriously, did I mess up here? I'm not sure if it was the right call. I didn't see him say anything bad back to her, and I seriously feel like I reacted to things that I shouldn't have because it honestly just wasn't my place. I made deals with both my parents to do things. I wanted my dad to tell her with his own words and my mom to wait for something to happen by Saturday. And with all things considered, I think I may have rushed this. Like, I actually just don't know what's going on. I'm scared because I think letting it happen naturally was the more mature thing to do. And at this point, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Okay, honestly, it seems like your dad's been cheating on your mom or something like that. And this also might not be an isolated incident. Like, it really seems like this is some kind of like premeditated thing that your dad's been going through. And your mom's like, oh, great, this again? Okay, I could deal with this. Which is crazy in my opinion. I can't imagine this ever going down that way because I know for a fact if someone's going to be cheating on me, there's very low likelihood I'm ever going to want to work things out with them. But maybe your parents are better people. I don't know. Like, this just sounds insane. But when it comes to like whether or not you made the right decision, in my opinion, I think you did make the right decision. Your dad absolutely was like nurturing this conversation between him and Abby, and this is obviously not an accidental message that got sent his way. He very clearly was like, oh yeah, this is something that's been going on for months, and oops, sorry, forgot to tell you about it, which I think is completely inappropriate. Like, if my ex-girlfriend started messaging me, I'd go to my girlfriend and be like, whoa, this lady messaged me out of nowhere. I definitely want you to know about this. But instead, this guy kept it hidden for like 3 months. So I don't know, this is really important. I most definitely would not want to keep this a secret and not have anyone say anything about it, because I feel the same way as the original poster. Letting this linger and have nothing done about it is just gonna make this way worse, especially when you're the one that found out and kind of caught your dad in the act. So no, you didn't mess up, you're not the jerk. This is absolutely reasonable for you to do, but in my opinion, the way your dad is acting is super suspicious, and neither you nor your mom deserve to be treated this way in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My brother used $150 worth of grocery points without telling me, and now I'm kind of left wondering if I'm overreacting because I am seriously pissed off, and at this point I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. To start things out, I have an older brother who's been struggling financially for quite a while. He has 2 daughters, so I've always felt a bit responsible to help out. Over the last 3 years, I've lent over $2,600. First, he said he would pay me weekly, and then it was when the tax return comes in. But now it's when the lawsuit money comes in. And just as a spoiler, it's been years and there is still no payout. I've also helped him for free with editing videos, designing logos, running his Twitch and YouTube channel stuff, basically being his unpaid social media manager on top of being his bank. Now, with that bit of context out of the way, here's where the actual problem comes in. I have a grocery membership that gives cashback points, and I added him to it, and we agreed that since he gets to shop there without paying the membership fee, any points earned would be mine. This seemed fair and he agreed to it. Well, earlier this month, he calls and informs me that he's been using some of the points, and he's not asking to use them, he's he's just telling me that that's what he's been doing. He says it's just bread and water until the coupons kick in. And I think to myself, okay, fine, and I just say yes. Well, fast forward and I check my account and it's over $148 worth of points that are gone, literally in 3 different transactions. So clearly it's not bread and water money. We're talking full-on grocery trips without ever letting me know. When I texted him, he joked back and said, "Oh, talk to my wife. She'll make you 3 desserts as a reward." He then backtracked and apologized, and then admitted that it was all him and not her. Well, now they're coming over Wednesday to talk, and I don't scream or fight, but I do feel taken advantage of. It's not about the points, it's about the trust. If they would have just kept quietly draining the points, would they have just kept going until it hit 0? So what do? Do I just tell him not to do it again? Do I drop it entirely? Should I take him off the membership completely? Or am I overreacting over grocery points? Because right now I really just don't know what to do. Okay, first off, you are not overreacting because this guy is using you. Like, think about it. This guy is playing you for a fool. He's already taken nearly $3,000 out of your pocket. He's never paying that back, by the way. And now he's using all of your grocery points, which, by the way, in case you don't know, that takes like forever to store up. Like, I know for a fact I would be losing my mind if someone did that to me because holy crap, $148 worth of points is a lot. And that guy just straight up took them from you. Like, what is going on right now? And I've got to be completely honest with you. Him having 2 daughters does not mean that you're responsible for them at all. That falls on him and his wife, not you. So don't for a second feel like you got to step up and be like, oh, he can't take care of himself. I need to be there for him. And sure, you can be there for him to an extent, but it sounds like you're basically running his life and he's taking no personal responsibility. And that just sucks for you. So I know if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would ever let this slide. I would let this be the final straw for me and be like, I'm sorry, I can't help you anymore. While also reminding him of all the money that he owes you. Because as far as I see it, this guy does not care about your well-being and he's only taking advantage of you because he's too lazy to fix his life. And that is not fair for you at all. An entitled Karen claims that I'm stealing from them despite the fact that I was dumpster diving through the trash, marking this as one of the most annoying situations I've been in a long time. Here's what's going on. To start things out, I was dumpster driving outside of a thrift shop. I'm an artist who works with reclaimed materials, so I'm a semi-regular garbage picker. When I do, it's always bins on public property, and I always leave the site cleaner than when I found it as a way to say thank you. Many businesses discourage dumpster diving for liability reasons, and if I'm asked to leave, I leave immediately. Now, at least 3 thrift shop employees saw me digging through their dumpster, and they literally did not care. In fact, I even chatted with one guy, and he helped me out by finding me a box to carry my stuff. Now, just as I'm packing up to leave, this entitled Karen comes out and says, "You can't put stuff in our dumpster." I say to her, well, I'm not, and then I carry on gathering my things. She then starts to go off on me about how I'm stealing from them. She points to a skate I had in my pile and says, "Those are skates that we could be selling." But seriously, it was a single skate that I found in someone else's garbage, and I told her as much. I then informed her that my pile contained trash that I had collected from around the neighborhood. She then continued to falsely accuse me of stealing and how the dumpster was on private property, even though it definitely was not. Well, eventually she went back inside in a huff. I put a bunch of stuff back in the dumpster, which she technically explicitly told me not to do, but I clean up as I always do, making sure to not leave any trash outside the dumpster. But before I left, I placed the single skate dead center in the front of the dumpster, just as a parting gift for this entitled Karen. Okay, I love this story for a few reasons, but most of all, I love how people are like, "You're stealing from us," as you literally dig through a dumpster. It's like, dude, if I'm stealing, why are you throwing it away? Like, let's be honest here for a second. If you really feel like your merchandise should be sold in your store, then maybe don't throw it away, dude. Like, for me personally, I don't care if someone dumpster dives. Like, dude, live your life, do whatever you want. But for someone to not only be like, you can't put stuff in there, but also you're stealing if you take anything. It's like, seriously, you're just looking for trouble and you're just trying to cause trouble, and that is incredibly annoying. My roommates have started to ignore me anytime I talk to them, but after they decided to ignore me saying good morning to them, I decided to scream it much louder, grabbing their attention immediately. And now they're calling me a jerk, saying that was a really rude thing to do, and I'm honestly not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. To start things off, I live with my roommate. She wasn't on the agreement originally, but she does pay, and she has been living here for about a year now. Admittedly, things haven't been going the greatest lately, and I am currently saving up to move out. Lately, they've just been in the habit of randomly ignoring me when I'm talking to them. It started with them ignoring simple questions like, "Hey, where are you guys going?" Which I get it can sound like I'm interrogating them, but I'm mostly just wondering in case something happens. But sometimes they'll ignore minor greetings as well, and this morning was an example of that. I had told my roommate's girlfriend good morning, and she just refused to even look up and continue what she was doing. Now, I figured that she was just too tired to talk, but when my roommate came down, she started asking her full questions. Now, this might be where I'm the jerk here, but I then said much louder, "Good morning," and then I said her name. And once I did that, I finally got a response. In the car later, my roommate told me that was a really rude thing to do, and I responded by saying, "Well, so is ignoring my good morning," to which she responded, "We don't owe you that." So with all things considered, am I the jerk here? Because honestly, I really don't know what to do. Okay, I can confidently say that yes, the original poster is definitely the jerk here. Why are you trying to force an interaction with people who don't want to talk to you? Seriously, what's going on? They obviously don't like you for some reason, and honestly, based on the way you're acting, I can kind of see why. Because when they didn't respond, you decided, I'm gonna scream at them. That's the only way to make them respond. It's dude, what are you doing? This is so weird. It also seems like you're trying to antagonize them from the get-go, and it's dude, you're already moving out. Why not just stay quiet and get out of there as fast as you can? So yes, I think the original poster is being a jerk, and I think the way you're acting is super weird, and you could have gone about this in a much better way. Am I overreacting for being pissed off at a volunteer worker at a food pantry after they gave me cans without any nutritional information on it? Because right now they're saying that if I'm hungry enough, I'll eat it, despite the fact that I'm feeding my daughter who has diabetes and high blood pressure, meaning that I need to know exactly what's in here. But despite that, I'm still not given any information, and at this point, I'm kind of freaking out. Here's what's going on. Okay, I just want to say that I'm truly at a loss, and if I'm being completely honest, I'm a little bit scared. I really just don't know what to do. For reference, my town has 2 food pantries. I can't go back to one of them until next month, and I hope I won't need to, so I went to the other one instead. I was given a box of mystery food where the cans didn't have labels and bags without the boxes. I then asked the lady running it what the food was or if she had any idea what it was, and she just said, oh, it's food. And yes, I'm grateful, but my daughter has a very strict diet, and I need to be able to look up the nutrition on everything that she eats. She then says to me, if she is hungry enough, she will eat anything. But here's the thing, she can't. She has diabetes and high blood pressure. She can only have so many carbs and only so much sodium. She's not just being a picky eater. In fact, I was watching another worker to the side taking things out of the package and writing what they were, except it was just vegetable and sauce. Very vague and very sloppy. In fact, I could barely read what was scribbled on mine. But I'm guessing they do this if it's past its expiration dates or something like that. So what about people with food allergies? Now, I've dealt with rude pantry workers in the past, especially when the lady refused to give her tampons because according to her, she was so young and didn't need to use tampons. So I don't know why I expected a different outcome. I know things suck for a lot of people right now, and it doesn't help when people have no empathy or volunteer to help, but want to gatekeep and try and control what is given. What will happen if she has too many carbs or misses a few doses of medicine? I really don't know, but I'm not willing to gamble with her health. I'm grateful for food, but I have to know what I'm feeding her. And I guess that is a luxury that I just simply can't afford. So am I overreacting here? Because honestly, I don't know what to do. Oh man, that is some really crooked practice. I've never heard of this actually happening before. The fact that they're taking the labels off and being like, okay, here's your food. Don't be a picky eater. Go ahead and eat it. Especially for someone who has diabetes and high blood pressure. Dude, what is going on right now? Why not keep the label on there so people can see exactly what they're eating? So with all things considered, no, of course you're not overreacting. This is a very sketchy thing to do, and the fact that they're trying to pull this on you, in my opinion, is so uncalled for. Because everyone deserves to know exactly what they're eating, whether you're poor or not. Am I overreacting for wanting to dump my boyfriend? All because his dad screamed at me and threw a glass at me. Because right now I'm very scared and I just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a couple of nights ago and I'm still shocked about this. My boyfriend and I have been dating for nearly 2 years, and I will say his relatives have always been unpredictable. Sometimes they're nice and sometimes extremely hostile. I generally steer clear of them because they are volatile, but it was his sister's graduation dinner and he begged me to join him. When I inquired if his parents were okay with me being there, he said yes and that they were fine and just wanted to make peace. And so I reluctantly agreed. Well, we get there and things seem fine at first, but halfway through dinner, his dad starts making really condescending comments about how I'm distracting his son from his career. I attempted to look the other way, but he still persisted. And finally, when I quietly said that I didn't appreciate the comments, he snapped at me. He got up and started screaming at me in front of everyone. And then he threw a glass across the room, shattering it against the wall not far from where I was sitting. And to be completely honest, I was terrified. I started to get up, but my boyfriend begged me to stay and not make a scene. But I told him I was already humiliated and scared. But he just sat there like a deer in the headlights while his family acted like this was normal. And eventually I wound up leaving anyways in tears. It's been a couple of days and my boyfriend has apologized, saying that he should have stood up for me. He also confessed that his dad has physically lashed out at him and on other occasions at his siblings too, I guess. He also literally said, well, that's just how he is. But it's not the way I am, and I don't want to start to be that way in my life. I love my boyfriend, but I will be honest, I don't think it's enough here. I hit a wall and that was it. So seriously, am I overreacting by wanting to leave? Because right now I don't know what to do. Holy crap, no, you are not overreacting. Dude, this is the best decision you could probably make because this guy sounds insane. First of all, your boyfriend is literally accustomed to this behavior. He didn't stand up for you or even try to protect you, and instead, he's just like, oh yeah, my dad's just like that. And by the way, you literally didn't do anything wrong. You came to dinner to try and support your boyfriend, and his dad is like, you're distracting him from his career. And all you said to him was like, hey, I don't appreciate these comments. And if that is honestly what made him snap, then this guy's got problems. He's got anger management issues, he's a piece of garbage. If you name it, then this guy probably fits the bill. Like, let's be serious for a second. And that is extremely concerning. Like, I would never want to be a part of a family like that because, yeah, you're going to be a part of that family. That's the family you're marrying into, and that absolutely needs to be considered. Especially with the fact that your boyfriend did nothing to stand up for you. He didn't tell his dad to back off. He didn't tell him to get lost and get away from you. He just sat there quietly and said, oh, I guess dad threw another glass at the wall. That's just the way he is. Oops, sorry about that. Even worse is him trying to be like, stay, don't make a scene, come on. It's like, dude, do you see what's going on right now? The only person making a scene is your dad, and the original poster is doing the right thing by getting the crap out of there. So no, you're not overreacting. This is the right choice to make, because in my opinion, the way that guy acted is extremely alarming. My entitled parents tried to force me to give up my inheritance just so they could have the money to take care of a child they clearly could not afford. And I honestly could not be more upset. Here's what happened. I am a 19-year-old female, and I'm my parents' second child. I have 3 brothers and 1 other sister. We grew up very poor, and our parents were often dependent on financial help from relatives and friends just so they could raise us. This is because even though my dad has a mediocre job and my mom doesn't work, they just kept on popping out one kid after another. My parents are very religious and believe that children are a gift from God. I think personally that's just a bunch of BS. My parents' choices to have more kids wouldn't bother me if it hadn't actively caused mine as well as my siblings' lives to turn to absolute garbage. While growing up, we never had new clothes or toys. We had to accept handouts from family members who were much better off than we were. We never went out or did anything fun. And to top it all off, we were well aware that the rest of the family looked down on us for constantly asking for handouts. Now, my older brother and I have managed to get into good colleges and are looking forward to a future that would be better than our parents' lives. He and I were staying at our parents' place for a while due to the COVID-19 lockdown. One morning, my parents called all 5 of us into the living room, and that's when my mom announces that she has great news. The smile that was forming on my face died pretty quickly when she said, "We're pregnant again." At this point, I lost my temper. I asked them how they could be so stupid and irresponsible. Do they not have enough financial troubles already that they need to bring in another mouth to feed? My older brother tried to calm me down, but I was livid. After a lifetime of scarcity because of my parents' stupidity, they still had not learned their lesson. I asked them how they planned to provide for this kid, and what my dad said next totally blew my mind. My dad told me that I would have to give up the money that our great uncle had left me. For the record, my uncle had left all 5 of us some money, which we only had access to when we turned 18. When he said that, I said, no, absolutely not. That money's gonna help me pay for my college expenses. And when I told him that I would not do that, he called me selfish for not being there for the family. I then told them straight up that if they couldn't provide for that kid, then they should not have tried to have one in the first place. My mom then started crying and called me a heartless monster. My dad told me he was disgusted with me, but I told them there was no way I was going to pay for their stupidity and that I would only be using this money for my college education. But to be honest, I was really worried about my siblings' lives getting even worse. While my older brother and I have finally escaped our parents' clutches, the others, especially my younger sister, will be expected to help take care of this baby. No teenager deserves to have their adolescence ruined by dealing with diapers and having to take care of a screaming baby. I know what that's like because I had to go through that as well. It was expected of me to be an unpaid nanny to my younger brothers and sisters. My older brother could go out with his friends and have fun, but I had to stay home and help give baths and feed the toddlers. At this point, I got other family members involved to try and understand where I'm coming from. So I decided to call my mom's maternal cousin. She's one of my favorite people in the world, and when I told her that my mom and dad were expecting another kid, she could not believe what she was hearing. I told her everything and explained how they expected me to hand over my inheritance, and she was absolutely appalled. She said she was going to speak to my parents and told me not to sign over anything. I promised her I wouldn't, and of course I wasn't going to. Things escalated from there, but to be honest, I've now decided to cut contact with my parents. I just can't watch my family slide further and further into this garbage pit. I'll be maintaining contact with my sister just to make sure my parents can't brainwash her. My older brother is going to stay in touch with all of them, which is a good thing as he can act as a link between me and the other siblings if my parents ever forbid them from talking to me. Otherwise, I'm completely done with these people. Good for this original poster for standing up for themselves. It's terrible that he has parents who are super irresponsible and bringing children into this world that they cannot take care of. And worst of all, they wanted the original poster to give over the money they were going to use for college, which is truly just so disgusting and toxic. This original poster literally has a way out of their situation, and these parents want to try and take that away and perpetuate this weird environment of everyone staying poor. So good for this original poster for standing up for themselves and getting away from this, because they can do a lot better than this and they're going to be so much happier away from their weird entitled parents. My ex is still trying to talk to me, even though we've been broken up for over 4 years, and I honestly don't know what to do. So I genuinely want to understand what is going on right now, because the relationship I had with my ex wasn't that serious, and it was only like that because he didn't want it to be serious. So first, a little bit of backstory. We met 4 years ago and dated off and on for a few months. I met him through my roommates and was very hesitant to get involved with him at first. He came off too strong and didn't seem like a stable or healthy person to date. On the 4th day of knowing him, he got us into a car accident because he decided to race his friend. Thankfully, none of us were hurt, but it showed me how immature and impulsive he really was. He apologized profusely and I let it go, but his father kicked him out of the house because it was his car in the first place that he wrecked. So he moved in with me as well as my roommates. This was all temporary, which I was really uncomfortable with, but couldn't really say anything otherwise. Another red flag was when he opened up to me about his ex-girlfriend. She apparently cheated on him. He was crying about it and seemed pretty angry. I could obviously tell that he was not over her yet, and told him the hard truth that I did not think he was ready to still be dating. He was stubborn and kept trying to charm me. It worked, and soon I started to catch feelings for him, and that's when he started ghosting me. Not much to be said there, he just stopped reaching out, and when I would ask him if he's lost interest, he would tell me no, and that he was just going through stuff. He would only show up once in a while to spend some quality time together and then disappear. I soon caught on and stopped trying, but it was really heartbreaking overall. I saw him one time about a month later, and he didn't even say hi. Then another month passes by and he only shows up at my house and starts flirting and getting touchy as if nothing had happened. He didn't give me an explanation and showed zero remorse, but I was still not over him and wanted closure badly, so I still let him in. He didn't put any effort in, we didn't go on dates, and our conversations were incredibly dull. He wasn't interested in getting to know me, and he was very vengeful and told me that he wanted to work hard and become rich. Also, his ex can regret cheating on him. That was literally his main goal in life. He showed up at my house once or twice a week. He would bring drinks and then he would get wasted. We would spend more quality time together, if you know what I mean, and then he would spend the night and leave early in the morning. At that point, I started to lose interest pretty quickly. I wanted to have a conversation and end things properly, but he said something along the lines of, not this again. I'm not going to change. This is all I can offer. I told him to do what he wants to do and that I was going to do the same. I can happily say that I have not seen him since. I basically ghosted him and I had zero regrets because he did it first. He treated me like garbage and wouldn't even give me a chance to talk things out. He kept messaging me for months on end, but I ignored him. Eventually, I started to feel bad, especially after he blew up on one of my roommates about how they avoid me and how I'm doing the same. For the record, their decision to cut ties with him has nothing to do with me, but for old time's sake, I reached out and we had a talk and I explained everything to him. I thought that I would at least give him closure, even if he denied me that the first time, and I made it clear I was not interested in rekindling things, and he said he respected that. At least that's what he said, because over the years, he kept trying to talk to me. Yesterday, for example, he texted me saying he misses me and asked if we could talk from time to time. Honestly, I have no hard feelings, but I don't really want to be friends with this guy. We were never friends and we're just different people, so I don't understand why he still tries to talk to me. I'm not saying any of this to be bitter, I'm just really confused and I just don't get it. Has anyone ever gone through something similar? I'm really curious to hear other people's input because this whole thing is really confusing. What should I do? This guy sounds really clingy. It seems like what he had going on with you was this like on and off relationship where he could basically do whatever he wants. He could disappear for months on end, then come back and spend quality time with you. And from the looks of it, no other woman wants anything to do with him. And he's being kicked to the curb and he has literally nobody. So he's going back to the one person who gave him the time of day. And I'm honestly surprised after everything you described that you even went back to him just to give him closure. I don't think he deserves it because I think he was a terrible boyfriend, if you even want to call him that. If anything, he's just incredibly desperate and very possessive. And I think it's time to cut ties with him completely. This is not a healthy thing for you or any kind of future relationship, and it's not something you want to entertain because his actions truly have consequences. And one of those consequences, in my opinion, is getting cut off by someone he mistreated. An entitled Karen tries to disrupt service by turning off our Uber application at the restaurant I'm working at. So I get this table and immediately I knew I would not like them. They appear to be in their mid-20s and both just seemed extremely snobbish. The girl doesn't take off her sunglasses at all. They seat themselves without speaking to me first, and she tries to put her purse on another table next to them. They park their extremely expensive chrome car directly in front of the restaurant on the street, and after being told that they can't park there, they just said, "It's fine." I didn't care if their car got towed, so I just dropped the conversation. I begin to ask them if they would like to start off with sparkling water or tap water, and this entitled Karen just cuts me off and immediately says in an irritated tone, "Bottled flat water." I start them off with that, and maybe 5 minutes later, they are ready to order. I ask her what she would like, and she just responds the whole time like she's repeating herself for the 10th time, even though I only had her give me her order once. I step into the bathroom for maybe half a minute because, I needed to, and I hear the Uber tablet going off with a new order. I wash my hands and step out to see this entitled Karen standing in front of the tablet, obviously trying to do something on it. I should also mention I was the only one on the floor. It was a morning shift, so obviously it was a nightmare. I go over to her and ask what she's doing. She immediately says, "Can you turn off your Uber? It's making a noise, and I don't like it." I immediately respond with, "Ma'am, please do not touch our equipment. I can turn the volume on the ringer down, but I cannot turn off Uber." She then looks at me like I just threw snot at her. "It's making an annoying noise." I was really tempted to say, "So are you, but you don't see me complaining." But instead, I just said, "I understand, but this is a part of our business. As I just mentioned, I can turn the volume down if you find it so disruptive." She gives a long, drawn-out sigh and just says, "Whatever," then just walks back to her table. She continued to be an entitled Karen her entire meal, and then thankfully left. The only silver lining here is the fact that her boyfriend even tipped us at all, because honestly, I wasn't expecting much. I gotta be honest, I was really hoping her car would get towed, because if someone acts that entitled, sometimes karma just needs to come back and teach them a lesson. But I have to say it, this entitled Karen was very brave. To go up to somebody else's equipment, let alone at a place of business, and to start fiddling with it, all because you don't like the noises coming out of it, is very brave. She could have absolutely deleted something, she could have damaged the equipment somehow, but best of all, she could have been kicked out permanently for destroying company property, which honestly I kinda wish would happen. I can't stand it when people act like this, where they think they're so entitled to just about everything around them, especially since this lady sounds like she's one of those people that no matter what you do or how hard you try to please them, they are always going to be offended over something. My girlfriend concealed the identity of someone she had spent some quality time with and saw them regularly while we were on vacation. I've been dating my girlfriend for a little over a year. For me, I'm in my early 30s and my girlfriend's in her upper 20s. This past winter, we went on a long road trip around the US, with our longest stay being 2 months in one location. We both are very into outdoor recreation, and that's why we stayed at this destination for so long. We both have several friends who live in the area and saw them throughout the stay, sometimes together and sometimes separate. It's worth mentioning that we have an extremely trustworthy relationship, very little feelings of jealousy, and absolutely no attempting to control who the other person chooses to spend time with. We both have male and female friends, and that's never been an issue. We have also had multiple partners in the past, well before meeting each other, and have talked on several occasions about past partners and hookups. This has never been a point of conflict. While we were on this trip, she spent a lot of time with one particular friend. They saw each other often and met up to hang out outdoors, which is very normal for us. I met him once or twice for a few minutes as we ran into each other outdoors, which again is very normal. She went to his house once. I was invited, but I ended up declining as I wasn't really feeling it that day. They seemed to text each other often, and I never thought anything of it. I remember seeing his name pop up on her phone frequently while we were around the house. 2 months passed and we moved into our permanent residence together. It's about 7 hours away from where we spent that 2-month trip. She had some close friends that were going to be in the area that we had just left and was sad about missing them, so she decided to go back for a week even though we had just spent 2 months there. I was invited again, but I declined as I was excited to get settled in our new home together. Several months passed and somehow the topic of conversation ended up on past intimate partners, if you know what I mean. She had shared with me before that there was a much older man, probably double her age, that she had spent some time with many years before we met. She always explained it to me as being fun but somewhat an awkward experience. I asked her if she had seen him since, and she stated that she had seen him a few times since then. I was curious and asked where she would run into him because she had said that he lived in an area that she had not been back to since she spent some time with him. But after I asked this question, she changed the subject and tried to avoid the question. And I don't think I can truly express how extremely out of character this was for her. I asked her again, and she said that she had seen him in passing at the place where we spent 2 months. I asked who it was and if I had met him. She said that we ran into him once in a parking lot on a trailhead. I was then racking my brain, trying to remember meeting an older gentleman that I just couldn't remember. She attempted to move the conversation in another direction, but the only older guy I could remember meeting was the friend she had spent a lot of time with, but I did not meet him in this parking lot, and I also met him more than once. I said something along the lines of, I remember meeting such and such, but that's not him, after calling him by name. But then she said, no, you're wrong, that was him. I immediately felt deceived and hurt. We really are not the jealous type, but it was obvious that she had hid this from me on purpose, that this is someone that she had spent some quality time with and for whatever reason didn't want me to know about it. She had attempted to make me think it was someone else than her friend, who she was certain I knew. If I had not named this person, I truly don't believe she would have revealed their identity. She had always named other previous partners, and I was aware of who they were, but this person was kept a secret. My gears began turning, and I then get really curious if she had kept me in the dark because she had other motives like trying to cheat on me. Because of this, we had several long conversations over the next couple of days. Some trust was broken, and I was having a hard time believing she was telling me the whole truth. I mentioned how she had talked to him non-stop our entire trip, to which she replied that they barely talked and that it was mostly about outdoor recreation and plans around that. She continues to tell me she has nothing to hide and offers me to read through her text messages, which is something we have never done before. After scrolling through her messages, it turns out that they were texting pretty much every single day of our 2-month trip. The messages are mostly surface level, and there is no hint of anything deeper going on. But as I scroll towards the end of the 2-month timeline, she hints at the interaction being nothing and asks if we can be done with me looking through her phone. I said I would like to keep reading, to which she allowed me to do, thankfully. I then see that while she had been gone for that week without me to visit a close friend, they had met up, and she went to his house. I read her saying that she could stop by a little bit later in the day and try and meet up. When I asked her about this, she replied, questioning if she really did go to his house, almost as if she doesn't remember. I'm certain that she never told me about going over there, so I asked several times, and she continues to state that she doesn't remember going to his house during that week, but she implies that she must have gone there at some point. I asked what they did while she was there, and she states she doesn't remember. She swears to me that while she doesn't remember exact details, she is certain that nothing happened and she didn't do anything inappropriate. Everything I know about her says that she would never cheat or lie or do anything like this. She's generally pretty easy to read, and she wears her heart on her sleeve. But I feel so distraught about this situation because I want to believe her, and part of me does believe her, but it seems like a big red flag that she concealed his identity and continues to try and hide pieces of the story from me. It feels extremely shady the way I was kept in the dark. Perhaps nothing happened, but I am sure that I will never be able to truly know for certain. My only real choices are to believe her and move on, or choose to end the relationship. I love this girl with all of my heart, and prior to this, I was so certain that this would be the person that I would be spending the rest of my life with. I don't want to end the relationship, but I am having a really hard time accepting this reality. It makes my mind wander to what other things have been concealed from me, as well as if she is even a trustworthy person as I once thought. How can we move forward from this and still have a healthy, trusting relationship? Am I overanalyzing the situation? Are these red flags as intense as I think they are? She is very willing to do anything to make me feel safe, loved, and comfortable moving forward. What should I do? I gotta be honest, her behavior behavior is super suspicious. She intentionally hid from you that she was meeting up with someone that she had spent some intimate time together, if you know what I mean. And I just don't think that's a good look. And it also is not a good look that her only defense to that was saying, oh, I just don't remember what happened. That's a pretty convenient amount of amnesia that just kind of happened out of nowhere. It just doesn't feel right to me. I think if anything, if you do decide to stick in this relationship, it's time to set some serious boundaries. Obviously, up until this point, you thought you could trust her and you feel like, hey, nothing could go wrong with our relationship. But from the sounds of it, this situation really does seem like it's thrown you for a loop. So I think some healthy communication and talking to each other, as well as being more transparent, could probably absolve you of all your fears. Another option to consider is possibly even talking to that former friend of hers, who she visited over and over again for like a week. You could try opening up that can of worms, but I don't know how your girlfriend would react, and I'm not sure if that would cause some problems. But either way, the way she acted is completely inappropriate, and I don't blame you for being upset, because this is sketchy behavior, and you deserve a lot better from your significant other. My entitled mother threatens to make me homeless if I didn't date the girl that she was planning to force me to marry, and I could not be more shocked and appalled at what goes down. Here's what happened. When I was 16 years old, my mother kicked me out of the house. I never really went into detail as to why I was kicked out though, but that changes today. First, a little bit of backstory. My mom, as most people in my life would know, is a religious fanatic. However, I am not. Do you see the problem here? My mother hates the fact that I refuse to let religion into my heart. I'm sorry, but it's just not my thing. I respect people who wish to practice religion, but for me, it's not something I want to do. Before my dad died, my mother was unable to force me into religion because my father is a big believer that people are entitled to their own belief. And when my father passed away, it made my life a living nightmare having to deal with my mother. I'll spare you the details on most things, but every time I complained, she would pull the exact same line each time. She would say, I am your mother, and I am the reason that you're alive. You must honor thy mother and thy father. So if you don't do that, you have no business living in my house. And I wasn't really looking to get kicked out, so I had no choice but to comply with her wishes. I had my older sister to vent to on the phone, but she lived far away because she and my brother-in-law were looking after her sick mother-in-law, so there wasn't much she could do to try and help the situation. I never told my friends or anyone for that matter what my mom was doing because I was so scared I would get kicked out. What brought things to head is when I came back from school one time and saw some random girl I've never met before sitting on the couch in the house. My mom introduced me to this girl and told me that this is the daughter of a woman she recently made friends with. She then told me that I was going to take her out to go see a movie that was showing that night. And at this point, I was kind of in a state of shock because this was completely out of the blue. To counter this unwanted date, I told my mom that I was planning on going over to my best friend's house to study, but my mother demanded that I was going to take her out and that this was going to be good for me. And weirdly enough, the girl was just smiling throughout the entire interaction, and I honestly felt so bad that I called up my friend and told him that I wasn't going to be able to study with him and that we have to do it another time. And while he did seem a little upset over that, overall he completely understood where I was coming from. The date itself wasn't horrible per se, but the girl was awfully clingy to me the entire time and called me these weird nicknames. And she got upset when I corrected people who assumed she was my girlfriend. When I got back, I decided that this wasn't something I was ever going to deal with ever again. My mom asked me how it went, and I told her I don't plan on doing that again. She then asked me why, and so I told her that I just don't want to. This girl isn't someone that I'm interested in. My mom told me that I was being ridiculous and that I'll get used to it and that I need to show more respect to my future partner. And at this point, I was really confused. I asked my mom what on earth she was talking about, and she told me that she and her mom agreed that we would be perfect for each other and that we would be the perfect married couple together. And if I was shocked by the prearranged date, the fact that I had some kind of prearranged marriage absolutely blew my mind. I told her that that is absolutely not happening. I said, I am only 16 years old, and this is way too early for me to be thinking about marriage. She told me that as my mother, she knows best, and that she's apparently picked the perfect partner for me. But I refused. I said, I am not dating that girl. My mom pulled her usual line of needing to honor thy mother and thy father, and that she'll kick me out if I don't comply. I told her that she can't force me to do this, but she told me that she knows what's best, and if I don't like it, then I have to make a decision regarding my future in this household. I then went to my room to think about what on earth just happened. I called my sister and told her what was going on, and my sister knows that I don't want to get kicked out because I was scared of what would happen, but she knocked some sense into me and told me that I have to stand up to my mom, and that if my mom does kick me out, I still have a strong support system in my father's side of the family. And to be honest, it is true. The reason I never stood up to my mom till now was because I was afraid of getting kicked out. Because of that, I never realized how strong the support of my family truly is. I love my father's family so much, and most of my maternal family had my back as well. Even my best friend told me that it's time to stop pandering to my mom's dictatorship, and so I did. The next morning, my mom asked me if I've come to my senses, and I told her no, I'm not dating that girl. My mom then went off. She screamed and said that she got that girl for me and that I'm an ungrateful brat, and that if I just accept religion, I won't be corrupted anymore. I then shouted back saying, listen, I am done with your religion. Ever since dad passed away, you've done nothing but impose it on me and threaten me with homelessness each time I have a problem with it. I've put up with it till now, but I've had enough of subjecting myself to this garbage, even though I hate it. I am completely done with this. I want nothing to do with it anymore. And when I said that, my mom was completely shocked, and she had this look on her face as if I just hit her with a bus. She screamed at me and told me if that's how it is, then I can get out, as my corrupt being has no place in a sanctuary like her house. So I did. I packed up my stuff and I left. I went to my paternal aunt's house, and when I told her what happened, she was shocked, mainly because she knew my mom was crazy when it comes to religion, but she never thought she'd go this far. My aunt called my mom and ripped into her, said a lot of choice words directed at her, and basically left my mom crying. My mom didn't even offer a real defense. She just cried and said that everyone hates her, claiming that everyone is against her. It didn't go well for her in the aftermath, as once my maternal family got wind of what happened, they all cut her off. Apparently, my maternal grandfather went ballistic and called her up and shouted all kinds of obscenities. But as of now, I'm 18 years old, going on 19. I'm living life with my aunt, my uncle, and my cousin. Things are going good for me, but my only regret was not getting help sooner. Because when I look back, I feel like an idiot for not realizing that I had such a strong family support system right behind me. You know you suck at following your religion when your instinct is to throw your kid out on the street all because they don't want to date some weird girl that you found for them. This lady actually was trying to have a pre-arranged marriage for her 16-year-old kid. I mean, how ridiculous and toxic is that? I definitely give some props to the original poster, because that must have been a really hard situation to be stuck in. But they showed so much courage moving forward and getting out of that situation and deciding to move in with their family, because no one should have to deal with that, especially when their family member is some religious zealot who's using their belief system as a weapon against their children. It's good to see they were able to get away from them and move on from that garbage situation. I absolutely hate my boyfriend's house, and I'm dreading moving in with him, and I honestly don't know what to do. So my boyfriend and I have been together for 6 years. Our relationship has been great. We get along well and have common interests, and don't really get into fights very much. We are pretty happy together, and we have very good futures ahead of us. We've been through everything together. I love him very much, and everything was going so well for us. But there is an issue. I have known that my boyfriend has wanted me to move out of my parents' house for a while now. Last year, I had a family tragedy that kind of set me back emotionally from moving out altogether. I figured that I would need another year or so that I could make the move and make it official. However, my boyfriend went ahead and bought a house anyways. While he lives extremely close, I definitely was a bit hurt that he made this big life decision without me. It also didn't help that I didn't love the house or the area it was in. I was grieving my family tragedy still and was just not in the place to deal with this. It just felt unfair to me because inevitably this would eventually be my house too, and I really didn't have a choice in the matter. But I really tried to get over it because I didn't want to destroy his accomplishment. I just wanted this to be our decision together, but that honestly felt ripped completely out of my hands. I guess it was hard to process my grief, and yet another big thing in my life getting decided for me without warning or say. Anyway, during the home renovation process, I did have a fair amount to say in terms of the decor, the furniture, as well as the colors inside the house, so that was definitely appreciated. However, this house just never felt like a home because it wasn't what I had envisioned for both of us. Again, I really tried to look on the bright side of things here. Now that the renovations are done, he lives here. My boyfriend isn't the cleanest. I like things clean and organized, and the house just doesn't feel like a home. Every time I come here, something needs to be cleaned, put away, folded. It's to the point where I dread coming over. Could I come here here and not do anything? Sure, but then it will never get done, or just get worse before he finally does address it. I just don't want it to get to that point because dirty houses make me anxious, and it's hard to picture this house being mine one day because I just hate it here completely. And now, the kicker that made this 100 times worse, after begging him not to, he gets a puppy. I asked him to hold off on making this purchase and investment because he just started living in this house alone for the first time in his life and needed to adjust to a routine. Also, his work hours are crazy. Don't get me wrong, this dog is adorable, but naturally he's a lot of work and he's very messy, obviously. Basically, this puppy is now the focus, and the house upkeep is on the back burner. That was already the problem, and now with a dog, it's magnified. We've been fighting so much because of this dog. He's completely turned our world upside down and makes me dread moving in even more. I love the dog, but just didn't ask for this commitment. Again, I'm grieving and I just don't want any of this right now. Am I being selfish or something? I've tried to tell my boyfriend how I feel, but he constantly shoots down my feelings and tells me that all I do is complain and makes me feel like garbage for starting a fight. The point is, what do? I can't imagine moving into a house that doesn't feel like a home. Am I being dramatic? Was it unfair for my boyfriend to make all of these decisions by himself, knowing that they would affect my life since clearly we planned a future together? What should I do? There's a lot going on here because it sounds like the boyfriend is completely neglectful to your feelings. You are literally grieving the loss of a family member. There was a tragedy in your family and he's just moving forward and doing all of this stuff all of the sudden. It just doesn't seem fair. You would think he would be willing to wait for you to try and get things going together, but he's making these decisions for himself and not for both of you. And that's completely unfair to your situation as well as what you plan on doing with him. And these are not cheap investments. They both involve really big commitments with time and energy. Not only keeping a house clean as well as taking care of a house, but also there's now a puppy in that house that's probably destroying everything within its sight. And that's not fair for you at all. It seems like things are moving way too fast in my opinion, and I just don't think it's a good idea to move into that house without letting him know exactly how you feel about the situation. You need to explain to him, again it seems like, that this is all moving too fast for you and you're just not comfortable with the way things are going. And if after that he still doesn't want to listen and he just gaslights you into thinking that this is your problem, then there's clearly something wrong on your boyfriend's end when it comes to this relationship. If I was in your shoes and my significant other had done all of these things without asking me or even consulting me to try and organize it, and then demanded that I move into that house, I simply would not do it. I would let him know quite clearly that this is moving too fast and that I am incredibly uncomfortable with this. If anything, it would not be a bad idea to get your own place and try and take this slowly and carefully, because it seems like he's trying to sign you up for stuff that you're not ready for. And I genuinely think if you want this relationship to last, he needs to understand your side of things and not try and force you into what he wants. My boyfriend owes me about $2,000, and at this point, I honestly don't know how to address the situation. I am a 19-year-old female and my boyfriend is 24 years old, and we've been dating for about 6 months. Before I met my current boyfriend, I had only ever been in one awful 2-month relationship and had never really had an actual boyfriend. 5 months ago, it felt like I had finally gotten what I'd been waiting for my entire life. He took me on an amazing first date. He was so sweet and funny. He was super attractive and exactly my type. He would grab me from behind and give me hugs every 5 minutes. He would call me beautiful and his dream girl over and over, and he just cared about me and was getting to know me so much. Every guy I had ever been with before him was just a hookup, or eventually became uninterested. So him putting so much into our first date meant so much to me. We quickly started dating, and it was an amazing first month. We really had no issues until he started asking me for money. I knew he didn't have a ton of money and lived paycheck to paycheck, and I had a little bit of money saved up, so I was happy I was able to help him in the first place. It started with an emergency $200 for his car, and then there was an emergency for his bills, which cost me $400, and eventually it got all the way up to $2,000. It got to the point where I was having to ask my sister for money to help him out because even I couldn't afford it. He promised me he would pay me back $100 every week, but he has only paid me $100 of money so far, and it's been 5 months. I know that this should have been a big warning flag from the beginning, and I should have left him 5 months ago, but I really just love him so much that I didn't want to leave him. Fast forward to now, and our relationship feels so different. He moved an hour away, so I only get to see him once every 2 weeks. He sends me text messages about half as much as he used to, even though we barely get to see each other. He doesn't listen or care about anything I say, and I have even caught him commenting weird and flirty things to other girls' TikTok accounts. And that's just the start of it. I've realized how little he actually cares about me, and being with him just makes me sad and miss the relationship that we used to have. I know I need to get out of this relationship at some point, but I know if I break up with him, I am never going to get the money I gave him back. I know it might sound bad and greedy to stay with him just to not lose my money, but I owe my sister $600 from what he owes me, and I work a minimum wage job. I really can't afford to pay her that much out of my savings. Also, I know this sounds sad, but he is one of my only friends right now, and I don't know what I'm going to do without him. I know I'm going to be just as sad and lonely as I was before I started dating him, and I'm going to start hooking up and putting myself in dangerous situations with random people again. I don't know what to do, but I don't want to stay in this awful situation the rest of my life. I just want things to go back to the way they used to be. What should I do? This is a terrible situation because it really seems like you want to stay with this guy, but he's just not being a good boyfriend anymore. And yeah, the first month was great. He was sweeping you off your feet and treating you like an absolute princess. So I don't blame you for having some kind of attachment to this guy, but it seems like he took advantage of your money and took as much as he could before moving an hour away, only to then treat you like garbage. This man treated you like an ATM and he got away with it. And you might not want to hear this, but I really don't think you're ever getting that money back. You can ask him, you can try and set up some kind of system where he pays you back, but I really think he got exactly what he wanted out of you and then he ran out of town, quite literally. But it's good that you know that you don't want to stay in this relationship because it does not seem like a healthy one for you specifically. You love him, but he does not love you back in the way that you would want him to. So I don't think it hurts to ask if he can pay anything back towards you, if anything, just to pay your sister back. But once he gives you that money, I really think you should move on and find somebody else because this guy does not care about you. And to be completely honest, you can and will find somebody who will treat you right and not just use you as their own personal ATM. Today, I messed up by believing that my dog could talk until the age of 20, and boy do I feel pretty stupid. This story ended yesterday, but it started around 15 years ago. My parents had a dog by the name of Blinky, the cutest English Cocker Spaniel you'll ever see. They had this from before I was born, so she was always there while I grew up. We lived pretty remote from everything, and my older sister and I didn't get along at all. So for the first 5 or 6 years of my life, I considered Blinky to be my best friend in the world. I don't remember many very specific events with her, but I do remember her always being around and by my side. And by always around, I mean she would even come along when I went to bed or the bathroom. We were perfectly happy. That is until one day my dad pulled a prank on me. And this day I remember very, very vividly. I heard my dad say something to Blinky while he was working in the garden, and I wanted to make fun of him for talking to an animal. But when I tried to, he looked me dead serious in the eyes and told me that of course he talked to Blinky. Why wouldn't he? He then said that Blinky talked to him as well. At first I thought he was joking, but he was so serious about it, and I was young and very stupid. So when he kept at it, I started believing him. When I asked, still wearily, why Blinky didn't talk to me then, he said she was very shy and didn't dare talk to many people. I think he carried on in the garden after that, but I was left dumbstruck. I went on a walk with Blinky and started talking to her, and then began asking her to then eventually begging her to talk to me, telling her that she didn't have to be shy and that I would never make fun of her, trying to help her see that she could trust me. But of course, as you could guess it, Blinky remained silent, and I was hurt. I know it may sound petty, but I was a type of kid who had a very hard time getting over things, and they would probably be very hurt if things went wrong. And this was especially true because my dearest friend in the world wouldn't trust me while she could my dad, with whom she wasn't nearly as close to. So I remember going home and bawling my eyes out that night. And indeed, things didn't get back to the way they were after that. Blinky had shown her true colors apparently, and I could never fully forgive her or go back to being the closest of buddies like we were before. I didn't hate her or anything like that, and would still occasionally play with her, but the close friendship was over. Some years later, when I was about 11 or 12, Blinky finally did pass away. Something was going on with her kidneys, and she was pretty old by this point. I was pretty sad at the time, because even though we hadn't been that close anymore, she was still our dog. At that time, I didn't actively think about the talking thing that had caused the initial rift, which resulted in my world not really falling apart when she passed away. Fast forward to last night. I'm 20 years old now, and I went home to see my parents, and my older sister was also there. There aren't a lot of times times all of us are together anymore, so when that happens, we tend to get a bit nostalgic and talk about memories from when we were younger. Today, for the first time in years, we were talking about Blinky, and the three of them were talking about how great and funny and loyal she was. And I mainly listened until at one point I said without thinking that I didn't really like her that much because she wouldn't talk to me. After I said this, my parents and my sister fell silent. That confused me, bringing my attention to what I had just said. And at that point, it all came together in my head, causing the biggest mind break I've ever had. Only then did I understand my dad's joke and the absurdity of its consequences. Of course, if I had actively thought about it, I would have figured it out way sooner. But the Blinky could talk thing had just been in the back of my head all this time since I was young enough to believe it as a passive piece of truth, which had never been questioned or reviewed again until now. So I explained everything that went along with it, and now because of that, my family has continuously made fun of me ever since. Needless to say, I honestly feel pretty stupid. Yeah, I would feel pretty stupid too. It's one thing to have your family be like, oh my gosh, the dog can talk to us. It's another thing entirely to believe that until you're 20 years old. So at least you can have some kind of resolution when it comes to the whole Blinky saga, and hopefully now you realize that it was just a dog and not some super smart sentient being that would only talk to your dad on occasion. An entitled Karen demands that her internet gets fixed right away, and despite there being a dangerous hurricane currently going on, this entitled Karen won't take no for an answer. Here's what happened. So first, let me give you some background. I work for one of the big internet service providers here in the United States, and I take incoming calls from people having issues with their internet as well as their phone. Throughout my time with this company, we'll call it ISP for short, I have unsurprisingly encountered many entitled people over the phone. However, some truly do tend to rise above the others. To get you a setting for this one, this occurred a few years ago during Hurricane Florence that swept through South Carolina. Now, I may have been naive at the time, but I figured that during the storm, we wouldn't get many calls from people who were actually in path of the storm. Rather, I was expecting more calls from people who were on the outskirts, who might experience some issues. However, much to my surprise, the vast majority of people who would call in were those in the storm as it was landing. This story details one of those calls when I dealt with one of the most entitled Karens I've ever had to deal with. So I answer the call just like normal, and I say, "Thank you for calling ISP. How can I assist you today?" The entitled Karen says, "Yes, I am calling because all my services are out. What kind of business is ISP running?" I respond back and say, "I'm terribly sorry to hear that. We definitely want to get this resolved for you as soon as possible. What's your address so I can look up your account?" This entitled Karen gives me her address, and I instantly know it's due to the storm that is literally just landing on the coast. I look up the account just to confirm, and indeed they are in an outage. I try to explain by saying, "Well, ma'am, it seems to be you are in an outage due to the hurricane that's going on." "I don't care about your excuses. I just want my stuff fixed right now. My babies need something to do to keep their minds off of what's going on outside." At this point, I was dumbfounded by what she was saying. I said, "Ma'am, there's a hurricane going through your area as we speak, and with the damages it is causing, we do expect loss of service. I am so sorry that this is happening, but there's nothing we can do right now." Despite the fact that this Karen was in the middle of a hurricane, she simply would not accept the truth. "This is absolute garbage. You need to send someone out here right now." At this point, I needed some clarification because I asked, "Excuse me, are you actually asking us to send someone out to your home right now during a hurricane?" She says, "Don't make me repeat myself. My babies need their internet and TV to work. What are we even supposed to do during this?" I continue on by saying, "Well, ma'am, we are not sending someone out to you. There is a state of emergency and people were supposed to evacuate. We will not be sending someone into your area until the storm has passed." The entitled Karen then claims that they already did evacuate and that they're currently staying at their second home, which is a little bit more inland. So at this point, I'm thinking I had looked up the wrong account, even though she had given me that address. So I asked for the other address. Her second home is right on the shore, and the one she is staying in is only about 30 minutes inland. So I said, "Ma'am, I see that you are only 30 minutes away from the shore. This is still an area we expected to more than likely be out since the hurricane was going to be hitting your area. Once again, we cannot and will not be sending someone out until after the storm passes. I then put on a very stern and serious voice and said, "Ma'am, there is a hurricane." At this point, I heard silence for a moment on the other side, thinking I had finally gotten my point across. However, this entitled Karen said the most entitled and honestly dumbest thing I have ever heard in my life.
"Well, there may be a hurricane going on, but that is not my problem. That is ISP's problem, and you need to send someone out here right now. If you don't send someone out right now, I will just have to talk to your supervisor."
At this point, I had had enough, plus she said the magic words. I gladly tell her I will get someone on the line so they can talk further. I get the call to someone in my leadership team, and lo and behold, we didn't send out some poor guy just to try and fix her services in the middle of a hurricane. This original poster had a lot more patience than I would have had. This entitled Karen was actually demanding that someone would drive out in the middle of a hurricane just to fix her internet, as if she's some super VIP person. How out of touch with reality do you have to be to allow that to be your reaction when you don't get your way? I mean, that's unbelievable. Really crazy stuff, and good for this original poster for laying down the law. I am stuck choosing between my girlfriend and my dream career, and I simply don't know what to do. So my girlfriend is 21 years old, and I'm 22, and we've been together for almost 2 years. Through the relationship, she has made it very apparent that she wants to move from North America to Europe. She even had ideas on where to live and what career she could pursue when she gets there. And personally, I love that idea. I've always wanted to move to Europe and live there. So as I figured out my life goals and what career I wanted to go into, I knew it would need to be one that had options available in Europe. So I decided on a career that I'm very passionate about and have started my schooling. But this is the part where things get thrown into a loop. My girlfriend decided she wants to move 3 hours away from where we are now and buy a house and start her own business in a small town. I am all for her starting a business and following her dreams, but this is a very sharp turn from what she previously wanted. The area she's moving to has nowhere that I can use my degree or even find a job in the field I'm currently studying. She suggested that I just move up there with her anyways and work for her business. And I honestly don't know what to do now. I love her and I really did see a future with her, but now she's asking me to basically give up on my career and schooling just so I can work for her. This is the first time in my life I have found a career that I'm excited for. This field is something I really want to pursue, but it feels like I can either have my career or be with her. She is set on the area for where she is moving and starting the business, so there is no compromising on the location. She isn't making the move for another year or two while she gets the money together, so it's not an immediate thing. But if I don't make a decision, I could just make things harder, and for lack of a better term, waste both of our time. So I guess what I'm asking here is, what should I say to her? Do I give up on my career and be with her, or follow my dreams and end the relationship? This is really bothering me, and I feel like I'm at a complete loss. I don't want her to give up on her dreams, but I also don't want to give up on mine. What should I do? This is a really tough one because obviously it sounds like you really love your girlfriend. And yeah, you want to be with her and spend some time with her. You even catered your career options to something that you could pursue while you're in Europe. That's a big deal. And you thought until very recently that that was going to be your plans, that you're going to go through school and together you're going to move to Europe. But now she took a right turn and said, nah, let's move to a small town and start a business. That is definitely very jarring. And the fact that you would be moving to a place that has no career options for you, especially in your field of study, is definitely hurtful. It seems like she did not put you in mind when it comes to the equation of moving to a small town and starting a business. She put herself first and decided, hey, this is what I want to do. And in a lot of ways, that's a little unfair for you because now you got to make this really weird decision. And so I totally get where you're coming from, and I can see where the apprehension is coming in. I think if I was in your shoes, I would talk to my girlfriend. I would say, hey, this is really not a good option for me. I would explain that I have career aspirations and goals myself, and I don't want to just give those up out of nowhere. Maybe there's some kind of middle ground that you could both work towards. I think whatever you choose to do and whatever compromise would work between the two of you, I think there's really going to need to be some kind of conversation about this, because you can't expect to just give up on your dreams all because your girlfriend suddenly says, hey, I'm moving to a small town and I'm starting a business, when your entire trajectory has been something different up until then. Because honestly, if I was in your shoes, looking back on my life, I'd be pretty upset if I gave up on my dreams just so I could pursue some girl I happen to be dating in my early 20s. I neglected the fact that my girlfriend needed some emotional support, all because I was distracted with gaming, and now I'm not sure what to do. Last night, I was playing a decently fast-paced game with a group of friends when my girlfriend, who I'm in a long-distance relationship with, messaged me about being stressed due due to an assignment she was given by a company she is hoping will hire her. I messaged her back for a while trying to make her feel better, but at one point I was about to reply to one of her messages, and I got interrupted by the game and forgot to reply afterwards. After the game, I had to pick up a family member from a concert, and after which I was so tired I pretty much fell asleep right afterwards and just went to bed. This morning, she messaged me asking why I left her on red, saying how I made her realize that I'm not the person she wants to share intimate details with. I went to read the messages from last night and realized how much of an idiot I had been by not really focusing on the conversation, and now I'm at a complete loss. To try and rectify the situation and to make sure this doesn't happen again, I already uninstalled the game from my PC and told my best friend I won't be playing with him for now because it simply is taking too much of my time and focus away from more important things like my girlfriend. Is there some way I could make this up to my girlfriend? I tried asking her if there was something I could do, but she understandably hasn't been reading my messages. To be clear, she needing my support isn't something that has happened super often, and usually it's been me who's needed emotional support, and she has always been there for me, which makes me feel even worse about what happened. What should I do? This is definitely a tough one, because I've been there myself where I should have been more attentive to my girlfriend's needs, but I completely missed the obvious hints, and I ended up making things worse for myself by not responding or even being involved sooner. So I totally understand where this original poster is coming from. So I think taking a step to try and limit your gaming is probably for the best. The reason being is that the original poster actually goes on to say that gaming has become such a big problem in their life. They stated that it's distracting them from doing other things like going to school and getting work done, and that they feel it's really hard for them to moderate how many times they play and how often. So if this is something that they need to limit, then I absolutely think that's a good idea. But that also begs the question of how can you gain your girlfriend's trust back? Because I think truly the issue isn't totally like, hey, you're playing games too much, but more so that you maybe are not as present in your girlfriend's emotional life as you may realize. I think if anything, just let this be a really big growing experience and push to be more involved in your girlfriend's life. And I don't think that involves any major changes in your life either. I think since you're taking a break from gaming, maybe take that time to spend your time with your girlfriend. Even if it's a long distance relationship, there's still lots of ways you can think of between the two of you that could be rewarding and beneficial to the both of you. I know what you mean when she says that she doesn't feel like she can share these things with you anymore. And I think if anything, I would just take that as a learning lesson and to gain her trust back as best you can. My girlfriend is seriously convinced that I'm faking my feelings for her to the point where she's thinking of breaking up with me, and I honestly don't know what to do. I'm a 23-year-old male, and I met my 22-year-old girlfriend last September. We met online and immediately went on a date the next day, and honestly, we hit it right off the bat. The problem came a little while after we started dating. For some backstory, I had been an obese individual my entire life all the way up until 2020. I went through a drastic transformation in a year that brought me a lot of self-confidence, where I was able to look at myself worthy of dating someone for the first time in my entire life. Before this, I never looked at myself as a potential romantic interest to someone. Hence, I had almost no experience in flirting and a very minuscule level of confidence in myself. I was often the bro around girls. After my first date with my current girlfriend in September, we started texting and calling very frequently. We grew close to each other slowly. Sometimes she tried to flirt with me in a suggestive way, but I was unable to participate fully with her. I never knew the right things to say, and I was afraid I might say something awkward to ruin the experience and the conversation. Some months later, this went on and I got better with time, being able to flirt back as well as being a better boyfriend in general in our relationship. I told her that I liked her in November, which was 2 months after we met. We were both into it and we committed to being with each other in December. But the problem is, she often told me she felt she pushed me into being more flirty in the relationship, and eventually this led her to believe that she was pushing me into the relationship. I tried my best in every possible way to reassure her that I wasn't being pushed into the relationship by any means. That even though I may have taken more time than she had liked to get used to flirting and everything else, I was fully enjoying and wanted to be a part of it. I loved her so much. Fast forward to now, and for some time, I have been feeling that she's been very distant and wasn't very interested in any kind of activities or romantic gestures together. She didn't even want to hold my hand very often and didn't want to kiss in public. She finally was able to open up to me last week. She told me that she felt that all this was being manufactured and had significantly compounded to a point where she felt repulsed from my touch, as well as my affection. She said she could not fight despite the internal thoughts that I was just putting on an act. She has been going through a rough patch lately, feeling in general very depressed, and this relationship trouble is no help to her either. She told me she still feels that she loves me and wants to work on this, but she has been dealing with a lot of hard times recently. I've tried to help her as best as I could. I've been supportive of her, and I constantly reassure her, but none of it has worked. So now I'm here on the internet posting about this, and I don't know what to do. I have tried everything. I cannot imagine losing the love of my life to something like this. I love her with all of my heart, and I'm willing to put in whatever effort it could possibly take to make sure I help her. What should I do? This is a really crazy situation because his girlfriend thinks that he's faking it. I mean, I can't imagine putting so much effort into a relationship as well as trying to show signs of affection just for them to claim that it's manufactured or fake. Like, that is so heartbreaking, so I really feel bad for this original poster. I think if anything, it sounds like your girlfriend could really benefit from some kind of therapist. Depression can really skew your view of the world, and it can literally make it seem like nobody loves you. But in reality, the boyfriend is there, and he makes it so clear that yes, I do love you and I want to be with you. So I think some professional help could really go a long way. Depression sucks, and it really is not something fun to deal with, but you can deal with it. So hopefully your girlfriend can finally see that no, you do love her, and that you're not just faking it like she's assuming. My girlfriend slapped me while I was pretending to be asleep, and now I have no idea what to do. My girlfriend and I have been together for quite a while, and she recently moved into my place, but things have not been going well. We got into a very nasty fight this morning, but we worked it out and decided to apologize to each other in the afternoon. So after apologizing to one another, I thought everything was taken care of. However, she was still feeling a bit salty for the entire evening. I went to bed early because I had to wake up early while she stayed up late to watch TV. At some point in the night, she came into the room to try and sleep in bed. I heard her walking in and woke up, but for whatever reason, I pretended to be asleep because I was just planning on going back to sleep. I didn't think much of her coming into the room. And that is when out of nowhere, the slap happened. Out of absolutely nowhere, I felt the nastiest slap I've ever felt on my face. It came out of left field and I couldn't even process what happened. My reaction was pretty stupid. I woke up and said, "What is going on, babe? Was there a bug on me or something?" Yes, I know it sounds pretty stupid, but I just responded to this slap on pure instinct. She said to me, "Yeah, there was the bug." And eventually, we just kind of went back to sleep. I confronted my girlfriend the next day about her slapping me in my sleep, and I dropped the news on her that I was wide awake and that I was well aware that there absolutely was no bug on my face, and that I know for a fact she slapped me for pretty much no reason out of nowhere. So I asked her straight up, "Why did you hit me in my sleep?" She got nervous and told me that it was just a prank and that I shouldn't take it so seriously. Later, she apologized to me, but not like she means it. More like when your mother makes you apologize for something dumb that you did, and you're just saying sorry by default to get it out of the way. It definitely came off that way, and I'm very, very upset about it. This is a deal breaker, isn't it? I mean, I've completely lost trust in my girlfriend. Who knows if she's ever gonna slap me in my face again while I'm sleeping? Or worse, what should I do? She straight up slapped you in the face, thinking that you were still asleep. I mean, how insane is that? What in the world was she thinking? Did she seriously think you were just not gonna notice what was going on and think to yourself, "Man, my cheek hurts for no reason, let's go back to sleep"? I think the original poster already gets it, but yeah, this is a pretty big deal. She was more than willing to slap you in the face while she thought you were sleeping, all over an argument that clearly she lost or something. I mean, you both apologized, you made up, what's the big deal here? There's no reason to slap someone in their sleep over that. That is not how you solve arguments. And if anything, it just made the whole situation a lot worse for her. So I would definitely take a good hard look at this relationship. She is literally willing to attack you at your most vulnerable state. And no, that was definitely not a prank. So best of luck getting that figured out, and best of luck in getting a good night's sleep. Because who knows, she might roll up and slap you again. You never know. My husband has been dishonest about his finances, claiming that he doesn't have the money to pay for household expenses, despite the fact that I checked his credit card statement. And now I don't know what to do or how to tackle this situation. I'm a 32-year-old female and my husband is 32 years old. We've been married for 3 years and I make the majority of our household income and pay the lion's share of our bills. He has a set amount we agreed to pay bi-weekly in line with his payday to contribute. We keep our finances completely separate except for this. Before moving here, he had never had a credit card and his parents were in serious debt. I told him to be very careful with his card, but that it was a good idea to have one to build up credit for himself, of which he previously had none. Over the years, he has abused that card horribly, even going as far as to increase his credit line against my advice. days. I also had parents who were massively in credit card debt, so I've known exactly how that feels. So I've never allowed myself to be in any kind of debt, and I'd like to think I manage my finances very well. Several months back, of his own volition, my husband came to me distraught and seeking advice because he had overdrawn his $7,500 credit card. He told me to take his card from him and that he was going to remove it from online accounts to prevent usage until he could pay it back down again. So, being the good wife that I am, I took the card and I hid it. Fast forward to today, and every once in a while, I check in with him just to ask and see how he's doing with paying that card down. He tells me he's doing well, and I've really been happy with the progress that he's making. But today, I found a credit card statement left open on his desk, and my curiosity took hold of me. He is almost maxed out on this card, and as of last month, he paid out more than he paid in. His list of charges include a gift card for his PlayStation, as well as several charges to restaurant takeout and food delivery apps. He has clearly not removed his card from any of these, and has even made attempts to hide his food purchases from me when I've gotten home from work. He spent over $200 on fast food last month alone, and this is the only month that I looked at. On the other hand, with our finances separated, I feel like I have no business interfering in them like this, but it is affecting our lives too. He is unable to pay for basic necessities like paper towels, or even shampoo or groceries sometimes, and I have to foot most of it instead. We need thousands of dollars in repairs to the house, and he has already told me he won't be in any position to contribute, so that will also entirely fall on me. This just doesn't seem fair, and I only found this out by snooping around. Am I in the wrong to be upset about this? How do I approach this when we've already talked about his spending issues multiple times? What should I do? Honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would be thanking my lucky stars that my finances were separate from my significant other. I mean, this kind of behavior is just not okay. This man is 32 years old. It's time to take a class at a community college or have some kind of intervention to explain, hey, our future is in jeopardy if you keep doing this. Because it really does start with small things like this, and then eventually he's got multiple cards open and he can't pay off any of them. In case you're not aware, having credit card debt looming over you is literally a nightmare. I've dealt with that in the past and it absolutely sucks, because even when you're close to paying it off, there's always just a little bit more that you've got to pay. It really is unfair sometimes. But with healthy habits and proper restrictions in your life, you can keep things out of debt, like it is possible. But it sounds like this guy would rather spend money on gift cards for his PlayStation and spending over $200 on fast food every month. I mean, what is that all about? The fact that he can't take care of groceries or other necessities, things that you actually need in your daily life, is a big red flag and something that definitely needs to be discussed. I think if anything, he needs to be much more transparent about what he's spending his money on. A possible solution is looking at the statements every month with him and detailing what we should have bought and what we should not have bought. Maybe that will help him understand, hey, these small purchases really do add up, and if we eliminate these things, we might be able to save up for, retirement, because these habits definitely need to be broken, and he clearly needs to have some kind of restrictions on his cards. Otherwise, the debt is only going to go up and things are only going to get worse. An entitled Karen tries to steal my PS5 after I just bought it, and when I push her away to try and protect my property, she turns incredibly racist and tries to claim that I assaulted her. Eventually, the cops had to show up and take care of the situation. Here's what happened. So I'm currently still laughing about this situation as it just happened today. I went to Walmart to get some meat and diapers, and then went to check the gaming section to see if they had a discount on some games I wanted. I noticed then that they had the first PS5 that I've ever seen in the wild since the launch of that system, and I thought, oh, that's great. I already have one, but I could make some money selling this one. I called the Walmart associate over, and they opened the cage and they got the unit. And unlike other stores, in Walmart you have to pay right there at the electronics section. You can't just go to the cashier near the door and pay. So I coughed up a little bit over $500, got my receipt, and was headed towards the door. And that is when I ran into the entitled Karen and her spoiled, rotten child. Right after I paid, I turned my cart to see this boy yelling,
"Oh my god, Mom, it's a PS5!"
as well as pointing at me and my cart. The entitled Karen then comes over to me and asks me where I found it. I told her I got it out of the cage in the electronics section, but explained that I'm pretty sure it's the last one that they had. And this is the beginning of the most hilarious conversation and chain of events that I've experienced in a very long time. The entitled Karen says,
"So you said that this is the last unit?"
I responded back by saying, "I believe so, ma'am. You can go ask the Walmart guy over there, he can verify." The Walmart employee overheard our conversation and said back to us, "No, unfortunately that was the last one. We only got 2 units today and sold them both. both. At this point, the spoiled rotten child chimed in, looked at his mom and said,
But Mom, it's been 2 years of you telling me you want to get me a PS5.
After hearing this comment from her child, the Karen looks at me and says,
So don't you want to just give me yours? You're like 30 and my son will use it way more than you will.
I was kind of surprised by this and I said to her, no, I'm sorry, but I've already paid for it. Good luck in your search though. The Karen then tries to gaslight me by saying,
You did not pay for it. You're not even near the cashiers. Your people don't even play video games.
I was definitely taken back by that because I could not believe what I was hearing. I said, excuse me? My people what? What do you mean by my people? This Karen then says,
Mexicans. I know you guys. Your accent is horrible, by the way.
At this point, I thought I should pull my phone out because I knew where this was going. I've seen it on the internet many times, but I never expected that this would happen to me in a small town in New Hampshire. I responded back to this lady and I said, first of all, I'm not Mexican. Secondly, we're done. I paid for the unit and it's mine. You can go throw a tantrum, but nothing will change. Best of luck. After I said this, her spoiled rotten child had a meltdown. He slaps himself on the ground and begins kicking and screaming and having a tantrum. This Karen looks at me and says,
You are a piece of trash. My son needs this and I'm taking it. You're not even from this country.
She then calls me a racial slur that was unbelievably offensive. Thankfully, the Walmart employee overheard and saw all of this, as he's the one that was helping me get the console from the cage. And best of all, this guy thought she was talking to him. So he comes over and starts yelling at her, reprimanding her for using that kind of racial slur that he thought was directed towards him. At this point, this entitled Karen then puts her hands on my PS5, and I instantly push her away. She then started to scream and yell, saying that I assaulted her and that people should call the cops. She kept saying this racial slur over and over again, claiming that I did steroids and all this other garbage. So I just moved away and waited for the cops to arrive. In a fantastic twist of irony, the cop that showed up and took care of our situation was Hispanic. I tell him exactly what happened and showed the receipt of the console that I purchased with my own credit card. The Walmart employee also was a total king, and he was on my side the entire time. This entitled Karen got angry and started saying this racial slur over and over again in front of the cops, and eventually this led to her being put in handcuffs. The cop then asked if I wanted to press charges against this lady, and I was like, yes, of course I do. I went back and tipped the Walmart employee about $50 because he literally had my back during this entire confrontation. And also, I really did push this lady away from me, and without a witness, as a taller 6'2" man, this really would have been a much different situation for me. I don't know which one I'm more impressed with. The fact that this Karen thought she could throw around these racial slurs and think that she could get away with it, while also trying to steal from this guy, or the fact that this guy found a PS5 in the wild. I mean, those things are so hard to come by. This guy should thank his lucky stars that he had that Walmart employee to not only witness this going on, but also to have his back, because this lady was completely unhinged. The second she didn't get what she wanted, she turned into the racist person that she truly is. I can't imagine being a fly on the wall and watching this go down, as well as watching this lady try to claim that she was assaulted by this guy, like he was just protecting his property that he bought. She had no business putting her hands inside of his cart. Overall, this is really just some crazy stuff. But what would you do if you were in this situation? Leave a comment down below, we would love to see it. I was accused of credit card fraud, all because a woman didn't know her PIN number. So at the hotel that I work at, a woman came in with her dog to get a room. The check-in process got off to a rocky start when she learned that I would still require her to pay a pet fee for her emotional support dog. Even after I explained that they have no legal standing and are not covered by the law, she insisted that other hotels waive the fee. I'm sure they do. Unfortunately for her, I know the law and we don't waive it. Once that was handled, I went to run her card. The way we have it set up, the card reader is on my part of the desk and I run it myself. If we need a PIN number or anything like that, we set it up on the counter so the guest can enter it. She stared at the card reader for a moment and asked me to run it as a credit because she couldn't remember her PIN. So I went ahead and did that, but it was still asking for a PIN number, which I explained. She got flustered at this point and informed me that she had been staying in hotels for the past 10 nights and hadn't had this issue before. She then asked if I could just type the number in, and I told her no, if I couldn't run the card using the chip, I couldn't accept the card as a matter of our anti-fraud policy. For some reason, she decided that this was suspicious and unusual and took one of our business cards and wrote down the time and which of her cards it was on the back of it before heading out the door. A few minutes later, she came back in looking absolutely frazzled, and again, she tells me how suspicious this is and that she is going to report me. I didn't ask who it is that she's going to report me to, but I did give her my first name and my title. She also informed me that she's going to cancel her card, which I guess means she's just choosing to make her own life a lot more difficult. Finally, she looked around the desk for a moment, examined the wall behind me as best as she could from a few feet away, and stared at the security monitors for a moment before finally leaving. After that ordeal, it seems like that dog is going to have a lot of emotions to support tonight. The fact that this lady acted like that and tried to pretend like she did not know her PIN number is super suspicious. That to me screams fraudulent. Like 100%, it seemed like she was using a stolen card, or she's planning on doing some kind of chargeback. I just don't understand why people have to act like complete morons when their card is getting declined. Like, guess what? It's your card. It's not mine. I didn't run this card and suddenly say, oh, I'm gonna make sure it's not accepted. Like, your money's on that. Shouldn't you know what's going on with your card? How do you not know your PIN number? Like, that's crazy to me. If anything, she should get upset over the fact that she doesn't know her PIN number. Even though personally, I don't think that was actually her card. I think she was just trying to pull something sneaky on this hotel, and when she didn't get her way, she tried to throw these weird threats around. At the end of the day, I bet this all was just a big bluff. She wasn't gonna do anything. If anything, it was just fear tactics to try and manipulate this poor hotel receptionist and try and scare her into letting her get a room or something like that. So honestly, good riddance. And hopefully this lady never has to deal with that ever again. I cheated to get back on my boyfriend for cheating on me in the first place. And now my boyfriend is acting like it's 20 times worse than everything he has done, and he won't move on from it at all. And now I don't know what to do. A cheater is a cheater, and there is never a good reason, even if you try your best to justify it. I'm a 25-year-old female, and I found out about multiple infidelities from my partner of 1.5 years throughout our relationship. He owned up and apologized for the ones I was aware about. However, I will never know how many more instances there actually were that I may have missed. We have since tried moving on and have been working on rebuilding our trust. I was unfaithful in return, and once it was revealed, it was like the whole world turned upside down. Nothing but this one instance is redirecting and interfering with the whole course of our relationship. I understand the hurt feelings, the betrayal, and the shame he feels, because I went through it so many times with him. Like I said, there's no justification to cheating, and I think subconsciously somehow I do want this to be justified in some way. I just feel like his infidelity first, his actions afterwards, and how we moved on prior when it happened paved the way for this exact thing to occur. I truly do not believe I was unfaithful out of malice. It honestly meant absolutely nothing to me, and I could have easily forgotten about it forever. But because of this, I feel like I'm being penalized so much. He said that even though he still wants to be with me, he doesn't know how or if that is what he really wants. He said he lost all respect for me and cannot look me in the eyes anymore. Again, it is completely understandable that he is allowed to grieve in whatever way he wants, but I feel like I didn't give that same energy each time it happened to me. I guess I just kind of expected him to ride for me like I did for him, even though I see now that was probably a big mistake. I feel bad that I am so focused on how his reaction to my infidelity is so unfair to me, instead of just focusing on the fact that I messed up and caused an even bigger rift to appear between us. I'm honestly just very lost in the situation, and I simply don't know what to do. I really think it's obvious, but maybe you just need someone to say it. This relationship is completely over. Like, you cheated on your boyfriend to get back at him cheating on you multiple times, when in reality, you should have just dumped this guy to the curb and said, okay, get lost. But instead, you decided, oh, I want him to feel bad about what he did to me. I want him to feel the same grief that I felt. So I'm gonna cheat after winning him back over and trying to make our relationship work. So you quite literally went the revenge route instead of having some semblance of self-respect and deciding, you know what, I'm gonna go find someone who's not gonna cheat on me. This is a very bad relationship, and you would be better off being with somebody else. This man does not care about you, and he is more upset that you tricked him and cheated on him behind his back than he is about him cheating on you multiple times. I think both of you have a lot of issues to work on, and I don't think that's something you need to work on with this guy, because cheating to get back at a cheater is not the answer. It makes you both look stupid, and honestly, you could do a lot better than this. My marriage has changed almost overnight, and I don't know what to make of this situation. I'm a 33-year-old male, and I've been married to my wife for 4 years now. Up until last week, this marriage has been the healthiest relationship that I've ever been in. We had complete trust, wonderful chemistry, went on weekly dates, communicated very well, and we are without a doubt best best friends. Last year, I took a job in another city, which has me away from home for half of the week. I knew that this would be a strain on our relationship, and we had talked about me staying for a year and then finding something more local. And now, we are a few months away from that mark. She agreed, and we both decided to put off trying for a kid until after that period of time. She recently got a promotion at her job, which has her in a high-stress training environment for the next couple of months. I offered to put my 2-week notice in at my job so that I could be home more to support her, but she declined, saying that it was only temporary and that we would be fine. Last week, she had one of her male coworkers spend the night while I was away. She turned off our pet cameras, deleted the footage of him coming and going from our doorbell camera, and lied to me when I asked if everything was okay. The only way I found out was a neighbor asking about the strange car in my driveway. I confronted her about it, and she admitted to having him over, but said nothing had happened and that they were just venting about work stress and relationship stuff. I want to trust her so badly, but lying about everything put doubt in my head. To be clear, normally if she would have told me that she was having a coworker over to talk or to study, I would have 100% been fine with it. It's the deception that hurts the most here. We talked all weekend, and her solution was space. I agreed to this solution, and so I went into the city where I work a day early. She assures me that this is a combination of work stress and the fact that all the relationships around her have husbands that work locally, so I'm not very present physically by comparison. I have a feeling that us waiting on having kids is a huge factor there too, as all of her friends around her age are having kids now as well. Our relationship has now taken a 180 ever since the initial confrontation. What was a wonderful marriage to my best friend now feels like I'm dating someone who is barely interested. I'm currently looking for a job locally that will have me home more, but I'm afraid that this is too little too late. I just feel hopeless right now. Was leaving a mistake? I wanted to take the week off so that we could really hash things out, but she wanted space. Or is this the case where I'm making a mountain out of a molehill? What should I do? I've got to be honest here, it really seems super suspicious that your wife not only had a male coworker over at your house, but also allowed him to spend the night sleeping over there, and on top of that, she deleted all footage of him ever even showing up, not to mention the fact that she lied about the entire situation. That in and of itself is super suspicious, and you have every right to confront her about that. I really can't think of a good reason why she would delete the footage. If anything, I would have personally wanted to keep the footage around. I would have wanted to prove to my significant other that, hey, here was my coworker, they came over and they spent the night. Here is literal proof that nothing happened while they were here. Like, if she really cared about her husband, wouldn't she keep that around? To me, this is a massive red flag, and this is something you definitely should not take lightly. And whoever that neighbor is that told you about this strange car in the driveway, I would honestly keep them very close because they have a good idea of what's actually happening. If anything, you could even go to them and be like, hey, what do you know about that car? Because I actually don't know anything about it either. And they might be able to give you some kind of lead as to who it was that was over at your house. There could even be a chance that they have some kind of security footage detailing exactly who was coming in and out of your house. Who knows? You never know unless you ask. I just think it's very suspicious and very hard to believe that nothing happened between her as well as her coworker. She was clearly trying to cover her tracks about something that she said didn't happen, even though it could not be more obvious that something did happen. Because from the looks of it, she tried to remove any proof that he was ever there. And unless your neighbor said something, she probably never would have told you that he was over. So I think you should take a good hard look at the situation you're in, because from the outside looking in, this looks incredibly sketchy. My partner's apartment is absolutely disgusting, and today I got so nauseous that I had to leave. Now I'm not sure what to do. My partner and I have been together for 3 years. When you walk in through the door, you are greeted with a trash bag without a can in front of you, along with a pile of recycling. To your right is the kitchen. The sink is filled with dishes, and there is a rotting smell in the air. Black stuff has built up all over the sink. There's random pieces of food all over the counter. Sometimes there is cooked food still in the pan that has been left there for a week or more. The bathtub has grime on it, and the bathroom sink sometimes has black stuff on it. And because of that, I simply can't be in there anymore. My job is very stressful as a teacher, and I can't handle the stress it causes me to go there sometimes. I am also very sensitive to smells, so I can get very nauseous very easily. I went there today after not seeing my partner for a while because of a really bad name that he called me during an argument. I felt awful because after 10 minutes of being there, I just had to go home. I was so stressed out from work and I felt nauseous. It was not good. Overall, it made me really sad. I wish I could just go happily to my partner's house and hang out. I told him how I was feeling, and he said I didn't have to come over if it made me feel sick. I told him I would like to be able to come over because otherwise we won't see each other much. I would invite him over to my place, but I currently have roommates who are not fond of guests. He said it upsets him, but he can't keep the apartment how I like. I asked for clarification, as well as an explanation as to why he couldn't just clean up the black stuff and the old food on the counter, since that is what really bothered me. And after I said that, he got upset and said he didn't want to have a conversation about it. This is all tearing me apart because I want to spend time with him, but he's not making any kind of effort to clean things up. And now I simply don't know what to do. This is a really nasty situation because there's a really simple solution. Why doesn't this guy just hire someone to do a deep cleaning of his apartment? Like, there's literally services available to take care of this like today. It seems like the guy in this situation's being very selfish. Like, this could very easily be taken care of and your girlfriend could actually feel welcome at your apartment, but instead you want to keep it dirty and gross while acting like you can't clean up the place. And I don't personally think that the original poster's overreacting. If I went into someone's apartment and it smelled like everything was rotting and there was black stuff in the bathtub and in the sink and there was food and dirt and grime all over the kitchen, I wouldn't want to be in there either. Why would I? That honestly sounds really disgusting. So I don't blame her for saying, whoa, you gotta clean this up. This is bad. Maybe the boyfriend just doesn't realize how bad it is and he's acting prideful and probably embarrassed to do anything about it. So if anything, maybe talk to him about hiring somebody to clean up the apartment. Like, I don't think this is the first time this has ever happened, where someone gets behind on cleaning up their apartment and things have slowly started to get disgusting around their living space. So I would say try and have that conversation with him, and hopefully he's willing to make that step, because this is a really easy thing to fix and it would be really silly to let this be the thing that drives your relationship apart. Today I messed up when I tried to convince my parents to do an intervention for my brother who had some really bad addictions, and boy did it not go well. What I'm about to share happened more than a month ago, and at the time there was nothing funny about it. Now it completely cracks me up and makes me cringe whenever I think about it. So at the time I was 18 years old and I still lived with my parents, and Christianity played a big role in my family. It still does. I'm not sure if I believe what they believe, but one thing was certain: my brother, who's 25, believed that there was only one true God, and that was the variety of substances that he was addicted to. At some point in his life, getting under the influence, if you know what I mean, was no longer about having fun, it was about feeding an addiction. When he started stealing from my family to support this habit, that's when my dad called the cops and had him arrested. My dad's plan was not to send my brother to prison, he was just buying time to come up with another solution. He called a family meeting and we brainstormed. Besides praying and hoping that a higher power magically makes my brother stop using these substances, rehab was the next best thing. My dad wanted to literally drag my brother to the nearest rehab center and force him to check in. I suggested that we try an intervention, just like the ones on TV, where loved ones talk to their family member who was struggling with addiction. In those television shows, they would have letters that they wrote to show how much they care and hopefully inspire the addict to seek professional help. My family agreed to do the intervention based on my passionate pitch. We wrote our letters and waited until my brother got released from jail the following day. When my brother entered the house, the living room was occupied by family members, church members, and a few of my brother's friends and one of his ex-girlfriends. I never expected my parents to basically invite the whole town, but there they all were. My mom explained to my brother what was happening before volunteering to be the first person to read a letter. But my brother was not about that life. He told my mom to stop reading and allow him to go upstairs or he was gonna get upset and say some things that he can't take back. But my mom kept reading, which then prompted my brother to roast the ever-living crap out of all of us. He made fun of my mom for being addicted to Botox and always running on the treadmill with her arms straight down. He then asked my dad what God thinks about him paying for scandalous pictures online, if you know what I mean. He said some terrible things about me and then moved on to my uncle, advising him to lose 200 pounds before trying to save another person's life. Then he went to his ex-girlfriend, and this was probably the funniest one of them all. He said to his ex-girlfriend that her belly button looked like a butthole, which was the real reason he broke up with her. This went on and on until an argument broke out between my brother and everyone else. If my brother was not the tallest person in the room, my guess is someone would have punched him in the face long ago. Luckily, it didn't go that far. My brother eventually went upstairs and didn't come down until there was no one left but my parents and I. It was awkward between all of us. My dad and I were unable to look at each other for the rest of that week. And what made it even worse was the fact that neither of us denied what my brother said about all of us. It was never mentioned again. Since then, my brother agreed to go to rehab rehab. He's been clean for 22 days, and it seems like he's doing so much better. My mom stopped using the treadmill and is now running in the park early in the mornings when none of us are awake, just so she can see if she's actually moving her arms or not. Thankfully, everything seemed to calm down, and the drama went away, and hopefully my brother continues to stay clean. This story is literally hilarious because that older brother had an insult for just about everybody. He probably had something stored up on everybody in that room ever since he went to jail, and that is absolutely hilarious to me. It is great to see that he's clean for 22 days, and hopefully he keeps that streak alive. Because even though his family was just a little too clumsy about the intervention, I think there's people in his life that love and care about him, and they want to see him have success in this. My entitled mom stole $8,000 from me and committed credit card fraud by opening credit cards in my name. Growing up, my mom was always in and out of jail for stealing. The last time she was arrested was in 2015, and I was 19 years old at the time. She always said she stole to provide for our family, but we never lived in a stable home. She would just blow money on expensive gifts and tell us because we have these expensive items, we're not poor. She basically tried to justify it by saying,
How many poor kids do you know who have stuff like this?
Mind you, this is all while we live hotel to hotel. Growing up, I became the financially responsible child. I worked multiple jobs, I got good grades, and I did community service. As a result, I was able to save up $8,500 for college with multiple scholarships. During my hard work in high school, I also helped my mom with bills and paying for whatever she needed help with. When I left for college, she was arrested again, and I had to be dropped off states away by my aunt for my first day of college. I asked my mom for my college money, and she said she would transfer the money when she got out. When she got out, it all magically disappeared. She tried to blame my dead grandmother for stealing the money, but in 2019, I discovered multiple credit cards and some apartment that was late on bills all opened under my name. I cried to my mom about all these issues, and she confronted me and asked me for more money. So at the time, I gave her more money. I graduated with a bachelor's degree and went to grad school. I was able to get into grad school for 1 year before I needed to take out some loans. I applied, but I was denied due to all the negative items on my credit score. My mom told me to just pay it off, but I didn't do that and instead dropped out of college. I was absolutely devastated, but I wasn't going to pay for other people's fun ride. I called all the credit card companies and got the address for all the credit cards, and lo and behold, they were all my mom's addresses. When confronted, she broke down, saying it was my grandmother and how dare I blame her for this. She demanded an apology and didn't speak to me for a week. My grandmother died before all the credit cards were opened. I filed a police report against my mother, but she doesn't know that yet. But when she does find out, I'm sure she's going to be incredibly upset. What a horrible situation to be in. I can't imagine having multiple credit cards open in my name, as well as an apartment under my name with all these bills and payments to make. That must be horrible. The original poster went on to say that when it comes to the credit card, they have gotten a lot of it taken off of their name, and there's only 2 cards and 1 bill on their credit score left that they're trying to figure out, which is really good. Hopefully this can lead to them getting back into grad school and furthering their education. I honestly can't imagine having my entire life derailed, all because of a family member who decided to try and take away my future. My boyfriend completely forgot my birthday, and I don't know what to do or how to even respond. So I met him 5 to 6 months ago, and we dated for 3 months. He then had to move, and we are long distance for now. It's been about 2 months long distance, and we talk every day, and I'm going out to visit him in 10 days for about 10 days in total. While he was here, the topic of birthdays naturally came up, so we told each other our birthdays. He mentioned that he's very bad with dates, and that his sister often has to remind him of his parents' birthdays so he can pick up a birthday gift. He said he would do his best to remember mine. It's been a while since that conversation, and I was positive that he forgot it. I thought it would be awkward to just say nothing and then mention that it was my birthday on the day of. The thing is, my best friend is getting married the day after my birthday, and since it's largely the same group of people, I decided not to have any kind of dinner, party, or gathering this year. So as we were chatting, I mentioned to him saying, so my birthday is next week, but I'm not doing much for it because of the wedding. Essentially, I was reminding him in an effort to avoid any issue of him forgetting. From his blank reaction, I am absolutely sure that he forgot it. He just said, oh, that's okay, you can celebrate another time. I thought to myself, okay, well, at least I reminded him. I didn't expect anything much. Just a verbal happy birthday would have been great, and maybe we would celebrate when I see him soon. Well, my birthday was today, and he of course forgot it. In fact, he only realized it because a few of my friends sent me flowers, candy, and other things, and I posted a picture on Instagram in my story. story. In truth, I'm very hurt. I mean, I even reminded him myself and still he forgot. I feel if it was important, he would have remembered, especially after my blatant reminder. But now I'm not sure what to do. I feel like I'll come across as making a big deal over nothing, and the last thing I want to do is to try upsetting him. But if I say nothing, I'm faking it. Again, just a simple verbal happy birthday would have made me happy. I didn't expect anything elaborate. How can I handle this situation? Am I being childish to be upset? What should I do? I think this definitely is something you should talk to him about. Your birthday obviously means a lot to you, and you don't want to set up a pattern for future celebrations of other events where he just forgets it and then you tell him after the fact. Like maybe explain to him, hey, this was a really important day to me, and I really wanted to celebrate this in some way. Even if it's just a simple verbal happy birthday, like it's still important to me. I think having a conversation somewhere along those lines will hopefully help him realize that, hey, next time I gotta do better. And this guy has a phone with a calendar on it. Like it's not that hard to set a reminder on your phone that says, hey, I got a birthday coming up with my girlfriend, I gotta make sure I celebrate it. This literally would have solved all of his problems right then and there. So in that regard, I think there's not much of an excuse as to why he didn't celebrate your birthday. I think having this conversation with him will also really establish that these types of events are really important to you. Because obviously, for whatever reason, it doesn't hold the same weight for your boyfriend. Maybe for whatever reason, he just doesn't view birthdays as that important, which might explain why he forgets his parents' birthdays all the time. So I really think if you talk to him and work it out, you guys can find some kind of common ground and understanding with one another where the important dates are remembered and properly celebrated. My female friend doesn't want me to leave her, even though she doesn't view me romantically and she has a boyfriend. And now I'm just really confused. I know this is a tricky one, but hear me out. I was always upfront about how I feel for her. I never lied, and I was open about my romantic feelings towards her. She told me that after an accident, she felt like I didn't fit the criteria for the person that she wanted to be with. I said that is fine, and after some heartbreaking deliberation, decided that I couldn't be friends with her. A little more background, she didn't outright tell me that she lost attraction. She waited a few months as she was hoping I'd just get it after constantly turning me down. And I will admit it, I was being very clueless and obviously deliberately ignorant. She now has a boyfriend, and he's a cool dude, I assume, but he lives a plane flight away. We talked about everything together, and I even helped her with her emotional troubles. We even had a few vulnerable moments. When she told me how she really felt, I was devastated. I thought I could try being friends for a bit, but I realized after seeing her face light up talking about this other guy that it was just too much. I didn't just cold shoulder her either. I helped her work on finding a support system that she can trust with her honest feelings and was preparing to move on with my life. It just doesn't feel like I should stick around to be this negative, jealous energy when she's doing well. She is a super bright and very charming individual, so I know that she will be okay. She says she loves me as a person and sees value in me, but I still really like her. I told her it was basically asking me to torture myself just so we could stay friends. But she thinks that love is wanting what's good for the other person, even if it means you don't get what you want. And while I agree to an extent, that just made me feel very confused. I'm just not sure what to do here. Like I said, I really do like her, but with all things considered, I honestly don't know if I could be friends with her. What should I do? I think in my opinion, it's honestly time to put yourself first. She does not have the same feelings towards you. She does not like you in that way, but it sounds like she wants to try and keep you around for some reason, even though this is very painful for you. Like you obviously like her more than just friends, so trying to stay friends is probably going to be really hard. So I completely understand when you say, hey, I don't think this is going to work out. And you said it yourself, she is head over heels in love with this guy. But I think it's really irresponsible of her to expect you to have to stick around and be friends with her. In my eyes, it comes off as very manipulative and not very fair for you. And I think she's right in some regards. Love means that you don't always get what you want. And if anything, that just means that you are not going to be in her life. She's not going to get what she wants in that regard. I feel like this is a very one-sided situation where she wants what she wants, but she doesn't really care what your interests are. Like that little cliche that she threw your way, it literally goes both ways. I'm sure you had some fantastic times with this girl, and I know you obviously still care about her, but for your own sanity, it's time to move on. You'll be happier being away from that situation, and you won't be so tortured knowing that she has a boyfriend and that boyfriend is not you. She is not the only fish in the sea, and you will find someone who loves you just the way you are. My boyfriend has a work wife and is continuing an inappropriate relationship with her after I've told him multiple times how I feel, and I honestly don't know what to do. I've been with my boyfriend for a few years. We generally don't have any issues, typically just a few stupid arguments that get resolved rather quickly. He started a new job and has a group of coworkers that he usually talks to. The majority of them are women, with the exception of one other guy and himself. I never worried about him cheating, but as a girl, I just didn't like seeing him have all of these group chats and separate direct messages with some of these girls. But I'm not the type of person to tell him that he's not allowed to talk to certain type of people. Last year, I was showing him some videos, and there was one about people that have work girlfriends and boyfriends. I forget why I showed him that video, but it wasn't because I thought he had one. I think it was geared towards why people shouldn't have one. Anyways, I continued showing him videos, and then he stopped me to tell me that he has a work girlfriend, and it's one of the girls in his work friend group. I was heartbroken. I know some people consider it cheating, but I don't. Just incredibly disrespectful to me. I told him how I felt about it and assumed that was the end of it. Every time I would see this girl message him, I would get annoyed, but I just kept that to myself. A few months later, he was sleeping, and I just had a feeling that I needed to check his phone. In the past, he would tell me I could read the messages he has with some of these people, but I didn't think I needed to. Anyways, I found messages in their coworker group chat of them still calling each other work husband and wife, which feels worse than work boyfriend and girlfriend. In their private direct messages, they would send each other suggestive memes, talk about some really inappropriate stuff, as well as things that they find attractive about other people. In addition, he lied to me about driving her home from a gathering that this coworker group had. I was bawling my eyes out. When he woke up, I told him what I found, and he was just quiet. I was saying how hurt and upset I was, asking if he had feelings for this girl and if he wanted to be with me. I told him to leave since he wasn't saying anything. He then told me that she has a boyfriend, and he said he thought I was upset since I used to be his work girlfriend when we first met and thought I didn't like sharing the title. He also said that he was silent since he had just woken up, even though he was just staring at the ceiling for several minutes while I was a mess. He said he didn't tell me about driving her home from the party since he knew I wouldn't like it. Again, I thought we resolved the issue. He told me next time to just ask to look at his phone. He then sent her a message saying that the suggestive memes and all the messages needed to stop since it was unfair to his girlfriend. This girl then gave such a snarky reply, trying to downplay them as just pals with the same sense of humor. A few months later, I went on his phone again. I saw that they were still sending suggestive memes to one another. This time, he got angry. He was defending her, saying it wasn't necessarily suggestive memes, and ended up trying to turn it on me with my guy friends to just try and make points. He ended up changing his phone password and added a lock on his WhatsApp. We were then invited to a wedding for one of the coworkers, and this girl was going to be there. I told my boyfriend, who is a very touchy person, that I don't feel comfortable with him touching her, regardless if it's a hug, a handshake, or anything else, and we will do whatever we can to not sit next to her. He ended up touching her twice. Each time I reminded him to stop. We then had a big fight on the phone 2 weeks later because we never talked about the wedding. It was more of me bawling my eyes out and begging him to answer any questions or comments I had, but he was silent. He ended up saying that he was hurt since I didn't see that he was trying to work on his touchiness, since 2 touches was apparently him trying. Ever since, he never leaves his phone around me. I told him that I want him to tell me if anything happens between them, whether it's her sending him certain messages or certain exchanges at work. I've never told him that he can't talk to her. I just asked that he not touch her, be alone with her, or sit next to her. He went out with this group 2 times this month. The first time, he didn't even tell me that he was going. I asked him why, and he said, "Well, I didn't tell you that I got a haircut," as if a haircut and him lying and hurting my feelings are the same thing. It has been a year of dealing with this garbage, and I know that it's still continuing. My boyfriend is very stubborn. I'm going to confront him again and ask to read their messages. I'm not sure how to approach the situation when I find more inappropriate messages, and I just know that there will be more. I know he will never do anything physical with her, but it's really starting to feel like emotional cheating. What should I do? This definitely is a really rough situation because it looks like your boyfriend is not willing to change. Instead, it seems like he's more upset that you keep catching him in the act of basically flirting with his coworker. To me, it really begs the question of who he values more. Does he value his relationship with his girlfriend or this girl from work that he's clearly messaging and flirting with? And that might just be the question you need to see if you really even want to stay with this guy. He doesn't completely seem like like a winner, and if he's not even going to be honest with you when it comes to his dealings with his coworkers, then I'm hard-pressed to think that this relationship is ever going to last. I feel like my boyfriend is taking advantage of my finances, and I'm not sure what to do. So I'm a 21-year-old female, and I've been with my 29-year-old boyfriend for almost 4 years. We met when I was 18 years old. I am in school and I am an athlete, and my boyfriend is a full-time athlete as well. In fact, we both met at the gym that we both train at. He has never had a car and has often lived with his friends since I've known him. He had his own place for about a year. After that, he moved in with me temporarily between places, but he ended up living with me for about a year and never paid a single bill. I didn't ask him to, but he jacked up my electricity and sometimes bought groceries, but I still bought most of everything and did almost all the cooking and cleaning. I moved out of that place and now I'm with my parents while I'm in school. He is still looking for a place to live, but is currently living with a friend. He says he's renting a room, but I know he isn't paying. He also at the moment doesn't want to move back in together. The only way we hang out is if I drive 25 minutes one way to pick him up. I've been giving him rides for years and often drive back and forth late at night just so we can spend time together, as well as rides to the gym and everything in between. He will sometimes buy me dinner or rarely some groceries, but majority of the time it's me doing this. I buy his morning coffee, he eats at my place every time he's over. When we travel for competitions, my parents usually pay for the hotels. I just feel like he takes advantage of my parents having decent money and expects me to pay for a lot. But then I feel bad about being mad because I know he doesn't make much money. He just relies on teaching in our sport to make money. We've had a rough relationship with a lot of toxicity and breakups. These have mostly come from him, but I've done a couple of messed up things too. I don't know. I feel like he just expects me to do everything and that I should be grateful he gives me time. I still cook everything and I still do his laundry when he's over and still clean up after him at my parents' house. Is it normal that I feel like he's taking too much from me? How would you feel if you were in my shoes? He literally won't even give me a massage, but asks for them all day, every day from me. But I will say he does help me with my sport, since he's very talented and can be very emotionally supportive too. One other very important detail is the fact that he has a green card wife. Therefore, I'm assuming he will need money for a divorce. I think they have like 3 more years before they can separate. She lives close and I've never met her, but I know that they were good friends. So I also can't get married to him until I'm at least 25. What should I do? It's definitely a big red flag if after all this time, he's not willing to step up and pay for things. Like he doesn't even do his own laundry, he doesn't clean up after himself, he doesn't buy groceries or anything. This seems like a very one-sided relationship. So in a lot of ways, I think it really is taking advantage of your kindness and generosity. He's taking your parents' money as well as your money, I think mostly because you're offering it. So from my perspective, it really seems like there's a big imbalance in this relationship. And I think it's for your benefit to tell him, hey, I need you to step up. I can't be expected to pay for everything and to do everything around the house. It's not fair and I feel like you're taking advantage of me. Or something along those lines, because that's what's happening. I'm sure he cares about you in a lot of different ways and provides you support emotionally and physically, but when it comes to finances, that's a big deal in my opinion. The fact that he's not willing to step up now makes me believe that he might be like that when you get married. So I would think carefully about this and maybe have a conversation with him, because this is something he needs to take seriously. Otherwise, he could very easily just keep taking your money and not contributing anything. I left my register to help a disabled customer get into their vehicle, only to then get chewed out by my self-righteous middle manager. Here's what happened. This happened back in March of 2021. I was 22 at the time, and I was working at a big brand name hardware home improvement store. It's the blue one, if you know what I mean. I worked there as a cashier, and I had been there for a few months. At this particular store, you have several standard registers, and then customer service and the lumber registers at the other end of the store, both of which run on a different, older software than the standard registers. I've always had a knack for making computers work, and I figured out the older system pretty quickly, so I ended up being in customer service and lumber quite a bit, basically just filling in where I was needed. One night, it's about 7:30 on a Saturday or a Sunday, and it was absolutely quiet and apocalyptically slow in the store. I'm working the lumber register, and it's just me and a section manager in that part of the store. The incident in question starts when my manager is off working product, and an older gentleman, I'll say mid-70s to early 80s, comes up pushing a cart with a couple of 2x4s and a couple sheets of plywood on it, pushing all of this with just one hand. As I start to ring him up, he mentions that he has no use of his other arm and asks if I can get some help to assist him in loading this into his car. I hop on the intercom, call for load assistance at lumber and start ringing his order up. A few minutes go by and I get no response. I ask for load assistance once again and still no response. I even call 2 more times just as a safety, but still nothing. I then directly call my store manager's phone that he has on him, but not even he answers. At this point, the transaction's done, he's paid up, and I'm getting really upset. So I say, screw it, pull your car around, I'll help you out. He is super thankful and goes to get the car. I open the garage door that's down at the end of the store and we get it done. At this point, I will note that technically, store policy states that I'm not supposed to leave my register. However, I was helping people load things into their cars for a good 25 to 30 times in the last couple of months, all while working there. So I honestly didn't think anything of it, not even mentioning that I could see my register from the loading area. The garage door was open, so I figured it would be fine. And I even let the customer know that I might need to run back in and ring up a customer if someone comes by. And he said that he wouldn't mind that either. Of course, I never had to. Like I said, it was unbelievably quiet. No one was in the store. It took me maybe 4 to 5 minutes to get him all loaded up. He shakes my hand and takes off. As I'm walking back inside, my manager is magically coming back to his desk, right next to the register, only to then lay into me for going outside and helping this elderly customer. He looks at me and says, "Where were you?" I said, "I was helping that guy load his car just over there." He says, "You can't just leave. You're supposed to call for loading assistance." I tried to explain to him that I did call multiple times and that I even tried calling him, but he wasn't having it. He just cut me off and continued to berate me for literally helping a disabled customer. I'm not a violent or confrontational person, but when I tell you it took every fiber of my being to not curse him out or to escalate the situation, this situation certainly fit the bill. And honestly, I've never met a more holier-than-thou middle manager with less to stand on. After that incident of getting reprimanded for helping a disabled customer, I quit my job like 10 days later. I didn't even put in a 2-week notice. I just straight up quit. And honestly, I'm better off without those people anyways. That manager really sucks. It's not like this person didn't try and ask for help or call somebody to be like, "Hey, come on over here and help me load this car." This guy even had a phone on him that this person tried to call them and they literally just ignored it. So honestly, good for the original poster for quitting this job, because you could do so much better than this garbage. Because honestly, having managers like that is really a miserable experience and no one should ever have to put up with that. An entitled Karen tries to tow my car in front of my own house, claiming that I'm blocking the driveway for the people who actually live there, despite the fact that I've lived there for 30 years. Here's what happened. In my life, I've managed to elude a lot of entitled Karens so far, but today, of all days, one finally got me. At the moment, I am cleaning out my house, and I have a container on my driveway for this purpose. Logically, this means I can't park in my driveway. So, in order to not further limit the already incredibly scarce parking possibilities for my neighbors who don't have a driveway, I park in such a way that my car is in front of my driveway and only takes up a little bit of a parking space. So 3 cars can fit wonderfully in this spot. No big deal, right? But unfortunately, karma had other plans, and instead sent me a middle-aged lady with that typical Karen haircut, hydrogen blonde hair, and draped in a lot of jewelry, as well as wearing clothes typical of this group. I have lived here for over 30 years and know pretty much where everybody lives around me, so I know their addresses as well. In the case of this entitled Karen, I didn't really know her name, so I just got out of my car and was on the pavement when this entitled Karen started shouting at me. She said to me across the way,
"How dare you park like that in that driveway? That is so inconsiderate. I cannot believe you. You better move your car right now, honey, because I'm going to be calling a tow truck right away. I know the people who live in this house really well, and they will not appreciate this."
And after she said that, I simply could not believe what I was hearing. Here's a fun fact. I live alone in this house, and my parents have passed away, and I've lived in this house for over 30 years. Not only does she not know me, but she most definitely did not know my family. When it comes to me, I'm someone who likes to clear things up straight away. But in this instance, I thought I would play along. So with that in mind, I went ahead and let her call the towing company. The entire time, she was calmly leaning against my car, waiting until she finished her call. When I asked her if she was finished and if I could leave now because I had to go to the toilet very urgently, she just looked at me confused and held her nose to the air. I took her weird head nod as a yes, dug the keys out of my own pocket, and went up to my own house in my driveway that I chose to block. So I waltz up to my front door, unlock it with my keys, go inside gracefully, and slam the door behind me. As I peeked to look at this entitled Karen, the expression on her face was priceless, a real picture for the gods. Instead of waiting for the tow truck to come along and sort this out, She just left. So in her place, I waited for the tow truck company. As soon as they arrived, I explained everything to the guys, and I showed them the necessary identification papers and gave them this entitled Karen's address. She's someone in this area that I know where she lives, but I don't know her name directly. One of the guys said that the lady had to pay for the services of them simply showing up, and from the way he described it, I'm guessing that the bill won't be cheap either. I'm thinking of warning the lady so that the shock about the bill won't be such a big deal for her, but on the other hand, I'm not sure if I should. Either way, sweet justice is coming my way for this entitled Karen who tried to tow my own car in front of my own driveway. How unbelievably entitled and trashy do you have to be to get in someone else's business like that and try and ruin somebody's day? Can you imagine if the OP wasn't home and suddenly they come back and they see that their car is completely gone? Or what if the OP was inside for a second only to then go outside and see their car getting towed? I mean, how weird do you have to be to get up in somebody's business like that and assume you know something that is just blatantly not true? In my opinion, I wouldn't warn that lady about anything. I would keep my mouth shut completely about the invoice that is coming her way, because you're right, chances are that's going to be an expensive bill. This lady tried to tow your car, so honestly I think it's time for karma to come her way and teach her a lesson. I've been lying to my parents about my major for 3 years now, even though they're paying for my tuition, and now I don't know what to do. I'm a 21-year-old male, and I have always had a rough relationship with my parents, my dad especially. We are extremely different, and he has always expected things of me I don't want to follow through on. For example, he is a big football fan. When I did not try out for the high school team like he asked me to, he took away my car and we barely spoke for 3 months. Even now, he brings it up frequently and says it disappointed him that I didn't want to share his interest. I did join band in high school, but he did not go to a single concert and would tell me constantly that it was embarrassing for him. He greatly prefers my older brother, who's 27, all because they are so alike. My dad co-owns a business with his brother and has the expectation that my brother and I will take over the business as soon as they retire. My brother studied business in college and our dad paid for it, under the expectation that my brother would work under him after graduating, which he ended up doing. When I went to college, I told my parents I wanted to major in music. My dad said that I could, but that I would be responsible for my tuition and any loans I incur. He said he would only pay if I majored in business. When I tried to see what aid I could receive, they said that because my dad's income was too high, I wouldn't be eligible to receive anything. There was no way I could afford it without their help, unless I used student loans to pay for 100% of my tuition. I did work through high school, but I worked for my dad, who did not pay me an actual check, so I have almost no savings aside from birthday money. I declared my major as business, and my parents agreed to pay. My first semester, I was extremely depressed, and I was not enjoying my classes. I was struggling a lot and thought about dropping out. I told my dad about it over winter break and asked him if he would be okay with me changing my major. He told me that he would prefer to see me working the rest of my life at McDonald's, as well as homeless, before he saw me as a music major. That upset me even more, and when I told my college friends about it, they encouraged me to change my major anyways. They said that if they couldn't accept it, I should probably cut them off anyways, because my dad was so harsh. So I changed my major, but I was too scared to tell my parents. For the past 3 years now, they've had no idea about my major. I've lied to their faces and told them straight up that I'm enjoying my business classes. My dad is proud of me for the first time ever. He keeps talking about how excited he is for me to join the business after I graduate. I feel guilty lying to them, but every time I think of how quick he was to say he'd rather see me on the streets than happy, it just makes me double down even harder. I graduate this year and I can't keep up the lie anymore. It's been weighing on me so heavily, I've started to feel physically sick with anxiety. I'm looking for advice on how to break this to them. I've been so prepared to not have a family anymore. I'm ready to just leave a note and run off. Can I salvage this? Or is the damage already done? What should I do? This story is crazy because there is so much to unpack here. The pressure that your dad is putting on you to run this family business when he retires is really ridiculous. Like, he didn't even think about your feelings on this matter for a second. You are clearly not passionate about business at all, and he does not sound like a nice person. I mean, in high school, he didn't even humor you and show up to any of your concerts. That is so toxic and so incredibly rude for no reason. He could have at least shown up and said, hey, at least I'm here, even if I think it's dumb. Sometimes showing up is literally enough. So I'm so sorry that you've been dealing with this. This sounds terrible. I also can't imagine the stress you've been under for the past 3 years. You're on the verge of graduating from a major that you did not tell them about, and I can't imagine how stressful that is. I think eventually you are going to have some kind of conversation with him and say, hey, I did change my major and here's why. And honestly, from your perspective, I can kind of see where you're coming from. Your dad said that he would rather see you homeless than major in music, as well as working at McDonald's for the rest of your life. Which, by the way, as a side note, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with working at McDonald's or any fast food restaurant for that matter. If it helps you pay the bills and make ends meet in your life, then go ahead and do it. Who cares? The people who do care and put you down for that kind of employment are just terrible people anyways. And this guy's dad is definitely one of those people. You could go to the financial aid office and see what you can do when it comes to payments for your college education. There might be a chance where you could start taking over things from there and maybe get ahead of this before your dad freaks out and does something crazy. I'm sure your college has different stipulations that you can work through, but I think talking to them and saying, hey, here's my situation, what do I do? Or even going to your guidance counselor and saying the same thing. I think that would at least give me a game plan if I was in your shoes of how to even approach this situation. So hopefully that conversation goes well with your dad, because based on what you've described, it does not sound like your dad's a very nice person, and I can honestly predict, as well as you can most likely, that this conversation is probably going to be a rough one. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for not attending my biological father's wedding? So my dad is a horrible man. He'd always mention that if anyone came out as gay, he would walk out. And guess what? He did that as soon as my youngest brother came out as bisexual and announced that he had a boyfriend. My dad didn't like that, and he even threw a temper tantrum like a baby when he found out that the boyfriend is black. My dad left the house and never returned until my twins were born. This all happened back in 2017, and since then, all the way up until my youngest pair were born, I had never seen him. My own children had not even met him at this point. Anytime we would even try and offer to come over with our kids to try and pay a visit, he would immediately leave. My parents divorced after my dad left, and I have little to no idea what he was up to. Well, it just came to my attention that he met another girl and has been dating her for a long time. My older brother told me that they've been dating since 2016, which is a shock for all of us because my parents divorced in 2018. My older brother found this out about a week ago. I have met the woman that my dad is marrying, and she's only 24 years old, and that made me sick to my stomach because when I did the math, she was only 18 years old when my dad was getting with her. My dad told me that he's marrying her soon and wants me to be the best man. Now, mind you, my dad never listened to me. He always talked down to me, and he was verbally abusive to my wife just because she isn't a white English woman. He did that all to my brother's wives and my youngest brother's boyfriend as well, all over the exact same reasons. So when my dad asked me this, I looked him straight in the eyes and I said, look, I am not attending your wedding. I am not going to be your best man, and I am not supportive of this relationship. If you want a best man, go to someone else who actually supports your decision. And after I said that, I left and I drove off. My dad's new partner and her family found my number somehow, as well as my social media platforms, and they are all collectively calling me a jerk just because I'm not going to my dad's second wedding. They are trying to guilt trip me into showing up to this wedding, claiming that because he's my dad, I automatically should have to go. They even tried to say that he birthed me, to which I responded, first off, my mom gave birth to me, not my dad. And second, I look at family as people I trust, not those who are related to me. So stop with your crying and leave me alone. I told my coworkers the next day, and they told me that I did the right thing. I was getting praised by them, and I can't be more thankful. But I still get calls and messages from this new extended family in my dad's life, even after blocking them, and all of them are calling me a monster. So what do you think? Am I the jerk? You are not the jerk. You did exactly what I would have done. If I was in your shoes and I had a dad who treated me this poorly and walked out on our family when I was younger, I absolutely would not show up to his second wedding. For some context, the original poster is going to be older than his stepmother, and that is really crazy to me. His dad, for the record, is also in his late 50s. So for a 50-something-year-old man to be dating somebody when they were 18 at the time is just really disturbing. That's predatory behavior in my opinion. And if this lady had any common sense about her, she would turn around and run from this situation. So no, you are not the jerk in this situation. I think any reasonable human human being would have cut them off a long time ago. You at least made some kind of effort to try and connect with him, so kudos to you for trying. But at this point, I don't blame you for cutting him off, and I don't blame you for not going to his wedding. I'm worried that my high school bully might try and get me canceled later in life because of my acting career, and honestly, I don't know what to do. To start off, I'm a slightly well-known actor and writer, so I'm using a throwaway account just to keep myself safe. But the title says it all. I'm scared that my bully from high school is going to come back and ruin my life all over again if I become successful. To put it plainly, my bully has something on me that could ruin my career if I get my dream job as an actor and a writer. I'm currently on a good path with jobs that rely heavily on an intact reputation, and that anything controversial could destroy years of work within hours. I didn't do anything wrong, but she could make it look like I did do something wrong. It's stressing me out so much. I'm considering a career change, as she still scares me so much to this day. She traumatized me as a teenager. Rewind to 2012, and I'm 15 to 16 years old. I didn't have many friends in school because I moved countries and I was still a little bit weird. At the time, I suffered greatly with depression and anxiety, but I hid it by acting in such a way that everyone would assume I was either conceited or stuck up. The bullying landscape in 2012 British high schools was rough. The language they used towards me back then was socially accepted by other students, but in today's world, they definitely would be villains. However, back then, everyone worshipped them. They were a gang of popular girls. They were 13 to 14 years old. These teenagers would really pick on me even though I was older than them. So much so that others my own age would find me embarrassing to hang around with because I was being picked on by a younger group of girls. Two of the worst girls would follow me home. I don't know if they went out of their way to bully me on my walk home, but part of my route home was along a relatively isolated road where there would be gaps on the road you could duck in and out of, so that whenever I spun around to confront them, they would duck away and laugh, and then resume following me when I turned around. It was so embarrassing for me at the time to be bullied by younger girls, and they found it even funnier when I would spin around trying to find my perpetrators. These actions happened nearly every day, so I just walked home trying to ignore them, angrily hiding my tears all the way home and trying to walk as confidently as possible. They would throw pebbles at the back of my head the whole way along that road, and they would shout terrible names at me that I don't even want to mention. They're so hurtful. Again, they would probably never get away with this in today's day and age. Anyway, one day I got home in tears and I had had enough. I went on Facebook Messenger and I asked her why she was following me home. She replied it was because she hated me. I then got into a heated messaging exchange, her calling me horrible names, and me saying everything that she's ever said to me on my walk home directed right back at her. Over Messenger, I mirrored everything she'd been yelling at me ever, but in text form, and she texted me similar words back. The two girls continued to follow and throw things at me on the way home, all the way up until I left high school. I never told anyone because I was so embarrassed that they were younger than me. I don't remember what I said over Messenger. I think I just copied what she'd been yelling at me for years, but I deleted each message because my parents sometimes checked my phone and I was scared of getting into trouble, and then realizing I was being bullied again, something my mom would not react kindly to, as she cried all the time when I was bullied in primary school. I never spoke to anyone else that way. I knew name calling was wrong, but I was just desperately trying to show that I wasn't weak and I just wanted them to leave me alone. Here's the problem though. I deleted her worst messages, and I deleted pretty much all of my messages soon after sending them in case my parents saw. This was 10 years ago, before Facebook's delete for everyone feature was even available. If you deleted a message, it would delete it from your side and not theirs. This meant I no longer had the message to click on to do delete for everyone. I don't remember exactly what I said, but from the messages of hers that I have left from the conversation, it was basically a back and forth fight exchange of who could come up with the worst names. She probably still has access to all of it, with my name attached and maybe messages that would give away that it's clearly me. I know we were children at the time, but I truly believe she doesn't have a good bone in her body. She was so cruel to me. She also hasn't amounted to much in her life at all, so I'm 100% sure that if I become successful or even get an okay job, she's gonna hear my name and remember those messages that she screenshot and try and distribute them online. I don't think deleting my account will help, as I could have said something that proves it's me. I don't know if there is any way of me accessing what I said, just so I can at least know. But at the end of this, I have no idea what I said, and it makes me so angry looking back that Facebook would store messages from when I was was a child, and because I stupidly deleted them at the time, I can't see that data that both Facebook and the other girls still have. Would they come up if I downloaded the cache somehow? I know I said some bad things because she was the one I was copying off of, but I can't remember what I said. But I know I was trying to show her that I'm just as strong verbally as she is. But back in 2012, some awful words were used as casual insults. If I become more high profile and she posted the screenshots, would it ruin my career? What should I do? I think this is a fair concern that you have about yourself 10 years ago. But I think also in that same vein of thought, this was literally 10 years ago. As you put it, you were a child. You were in high school and you made some mistakes. You went down to her level and you decided to be just as nasty as she was. Which, looking back, is probably not the best idea, but when you're a kid and you're getting bullied every single day and you have people stalking you home, this was probably your only answer to their abuse. And yeah, it wasn't a very good answer, but you learned from it. I really just don't think you should hold yourself that accountable for being 16 and making a bad mistake. Everybody can look back on their life and find a moment where they're like, man, I wish I had not said that. I know that's true for me at least. And also, you really have to remember that your former bully has no power over you anymore. They are gone. Just look around. They're nowhere to be seen. They cannot hurt you anymore. You are so far past that. And in the end, if we're really counting points, it sounds like you're a lot more successful in life than they will ever be. So why worry what they think? If they were to take this hypothetical route where they expose you with some messages you sent as a teenager, then that just shows how much of a terrible person they are. And then if anything, if you really are at a high profile position, you can then defend yourself and say, this girl harassed me every day of my life in high school and stalked me home, throwing rocks at me and calling me terrible names. And in a moment of weakness, I reciprocated and I regret it. I was a teenager and I've learned and I've moved on. And that's honestly it. Your abuser and your bully has no power over you. And I truly think you should confidently run at your career options. It sounds like you have some really good opportunities in front of you. And I just don't think your fear of this bully who has no hold over your life should stop you from pursuing your dreams and being successful. My father, who hasn't been there for me my entire life, is trying to guilt trip me for making a decision about my name, and now I don't know what to do about it. First, some backstory. My father and mother split up when I was only 1 year old. I moved back to England with my mother, and my father stayed in America. Until recently, I didn't know the real reason they divorced, but it was because my father cheated on my mother about 3 months before I was born. So once I found that out last year, I was less inclined to talk to my father, and he is constantly denying that he had any affair. Over the years, my father made no effort to keep in contact with me other than birthdays. And as a child, I didn't really understand communication over email, so I rarely contacted him first. I feel as though I wasn't responsible for building this relationship as I was just a child. Nowadays, whenever I go a month or more without texting, he'll always bring up that I don't care about him and that his new stepkids keep in contact more often than I do. And when he says this, it makes me feel like garbage, especially when I'm being compared to some other family that I'm not a part of. And to top it all off, I know for a fact he's only doing that with malicious intent. I honestly don't care about him because he has never made the effort to show that he cares about me. I always had to spend my time and money visiting him in America when he has a very high-paying job, which makes it so he could easily afford to come visit me at least once every few years when he has the time. Recently, I changed my first name due to being non-binary. I didn't want my birth name, so I changed it. I consulted my mother and my stepfather, as well as my close friends and my therapist at the time about this decision, but I did not contact my father. Now, my dad is getting angry at me over text message for not including him in this decision, even though in reality, he is a complete and total stranger. He threatened to disown me over the decision, stating that this is a costly mistake and that it's costing me over $1 million, implying that I won't be in his will. And that's the worst part about all of this. I don't care about the money. I just wanted a dad. He is being a complete jerk and I don't know how to deal with this. At the end of the day, he's my biological father, but I don't want anything to do with him. What should I do? I mean, you put it best. You honestly don't need to have anything to do with him. And while yes, he is your biological father, his actions prove over and over again that he quite literally does not care about you. This man obviously has the time and the money to be able to visit you, but chooses not to do it and leaves that burden on you. And you have it right. When you're a kid, you have no obligation to try and establish any kind of relationship. That's not your responsibility. If anything, that's the dad's responsibility. He should have stepped up and been more involved in your life. It's not fair fair for that burden to be placed on you at such a young age, especially considering all the things that your dad did to your family. So overall, I don't blame you for changing your name, and I think it's really wrong and toxic for your dad to be guilt-tripping you, all because of a choice you're making as an adult. You can change your name, you can do whatever you want, but for him to try and hold this imaginary money hostage against you, all because you're changing your name into something that you're more comfortable with, is just another form of manipulation and just one more way for him to try and control you. I mean, let's look at the facts here. He doesn't even make the effort to try and visit you. You have always needed to visit him, despite the fact that he has the money to do whatever he wants. It sounds like he's a millionaire. There's no excuse. So if this man truly is some kind of stranger in your life, then just keep him that way. I wouldn't let some weird threat about keeping you out of his will when he finally passes on prevent you from living your life to the fullest extent in whatever way you choose is best. An entitled Karen harasses a lady with crutches, all because she wants her seat on the train. But karma had other plans, as she got exactly what she deserved. Here's what happened. So I've been living in Finland for a while now, and I had really come to think of Karens as being an American phenomenon. They are never something I really thought to see out in the wild in Finland, of all places. People from Finland in general tend to keep to themselves and not bother anyone with things like invading their personal space or even having small talk with strangers. Today, much to my dismay, I had my image shattered, and I can now attest to the fact that Karens exist all over the world. One great thing about where I live is that the public transportation system is absolutely brilliant. I can take a train from where I live to most places in the city without any real problems or any long waits. I rarely have to wait more than 10 minutes just to catch a train to get where I need to be. This is especially good since I was recently injured. In short, when I was going down the stairs, my feet forgot how to be feet, and so I took a little bit of a tumble. And to make a long story short, I ended up breaking my ankle, and I'm in crutches until it gets better. Today, I needed to head into the city center. It should have been a very quick and easy trip, with minimal walking overall. So relatively, it was going to be a painless experience considering my condition. With my crutches, I hobbled my way across the street and got onto the train. Now, to paint a little picture, the way the trains are set up is like that of most subways. You don't have to go in through the front door, and you can enter the train from one of the set of doors along the sides of it. On the side in front of each of those doors is an open space where the seats fold up to allow room for wheelchairs, walkers, strollers, and anything similar to it. Now, there is a little nook behind the doors I enter through with 2 fold-down seats. I choose to sit there because those are some of the last seats taken on the train, and people with strollers and wheelchairs have to maneuver a little extra to get in there, making them generally less desirable. But they are perfect for someone on crutches, just like me. So I take my seat and I jam out to my music while waiting for my stop. We get about halfway there to my destination when a woman with a gigantic stroller gets on the train. Now, as I said, the entire area was completely devoid of people. She had her choice of any of the spots in that space to park her behemoth stroller wherever she wants. However, none of those places were good enough for her because immediately her eyes fell on me. She actually fit her stroller into one of the vacant spaces, walked over to me, and actually asked me to move so she could sit there. I just stared at her and blinked. I was completely surprised. First of all, I was surprised that a woman from Finland was actually speaking to me on the train. In my entire time living here, it has honestly never happened before. I've had tourists ask me for directions, but outside of drunk people, I've never had anybody from Finland engage me in small talk. I pulled out an earbud and asked her to repeat herself. She gave me an annoyed huff while also assuming that my accent must mean that I don't understand her language. She rolled her eyes and switched to English. She said to me,
"You need to move so I can sit down."
I blinked again and looked around her at the 4 empty seats across from me, all sitting beside her carriage. I said to her, "There are empty seats right over there." But she responded back, saying,
"I want to sit there."
Now, I did my time in customer service, and I no longer have the patience that I once had. After she made her demands known, I took a second to myself, took a deep breath, and finally responded to her. I said, "It's good to want things in life, isn't it?" I was not having any of her nonsense. I put my earbuds back in and I turned to look out the window. Then she tapped me on the shoulder and I looked back at her again in shock that a person from Finland was willing to put their hands on another person, all while being completely sober. She then said to me,
"You don't understand. Do you not speak English?"
Mind you, she literally just heard me respond to her in English. It's my first language after all. I responded by saying, "I understand that there are a bunch of empty seats right there and you're bothering me for mine."
"You have to move. These seats are for mothers and their babies. I am a mother.
I responded calmly by saying, congratulations, but your procreation choices have absolutely no bearing on me or my life. The funniest part about this exchange is that literally right by my head was a sign that had a little image of an old person with a cane, as well as a person with a wheelchair, a pregnant woman, and I bet you guess what the other picture was, a person with a cast on their foot with a crutch. I was actually on the sign, a person with a cast and a crutch. It seemed at this point that she was just incredibly annoyed because she started to raise her voice as she demanded that I move. She kindly informed me that I could just sit anywhere else. She was now loud enough that a few of the other passengers had taken interest and were watching her. Rather deliberately, I picked up one of my crutches and tapped the handle against the sign right beside my face. I said, "This spot is also intended for injured people. As you can see, I'm injured. There are empty seats right next to you. I suggest you take one if you want to sit down, because I am not moving." This lady then starts screaming and saying,
"But I want to sit there. You have to move for me because I'm a mother."
At this point, she just kept saying that over and over and over again, perhaps thinking that the 11th time saying it would somehow be more compelling than the 6th time. I decided to leave her to it and went back to looking out the window, hoping she'd get tired of talking to a brick wall. She did, but rather than take one of the empty seats, she marched up to the driver at the front. Now, I can't even imagine what it is that she said to this driver, but at the next stop, the driver walked back to the back where I was, and it was obvious she was planning on telling me I had to move, but as I came into view, she just looked surprised, then confused, and then incredibly annoyed at this entitled Karen. She walked back up and spoke to the mother. Again, I couldn't hear what they were saying, as they were too far away from me. Whatever she said did not please this entitled Karen, as she came back to her stuff and practically threw herself into the fold-down seat. However, in a beautiful display of karma, the seat did not like the force at which she threw herself into it, because there was a loud snap of plastic cracking as this lady jumped to her feet in alarm. Just at that moment, the train lurched forward and she was thrown unceremoniously on her motherly backside. And at that point, I couldn't help it. I busted up laughing. I'm not sure if the next stop was actually her stop or she couldn't take me laughing at her, but she grabbed her Giga stroller and literally stomped off the train. Sometimes karma really does have your back. This is awesome, and this original poster is literally my hero. They stood up for themselves and said, "No, I'm not taking this for a second." They quite literally belong in that seat. The sign says so. I mean, this original poster was cold as ice, and I'm such a big fan. I love to see stories like this where karma comes through right when it counts. So good for this original poster for standing up for themselves, because the way they were being treated was absolutely unacceptable. I'm convinced that my perfect relationship was built off of lies, and now I don't know what to do. So I'm a 19-year-old female, and I thought I had the perfect relationship up until now. He's everything I want in a man. He's older than me, super successful, good looking, he's big and strong, and really affectionate. The only real flaws I can think of are that he has a bit of a temper, and sometimes he can be a bit smothering with the amount of affection and attention he wants. But these are very minor things. He never keeps anything for me. I have the passwords to all of his devices, but I am never the type to look through his stuff because I don't really care. But I know that if I did, he wouldn't have a problem with it. He has this one friend that he's really close with. They're almost like brothers and went through really tough times together. Since they're so close, I kind of wanted to see if he said anything about me to him during the beginning of our relationship. I know it's really wrong of me and an invasion of his privacy, but I know my boyfriend wouldn't get mad at me for that, and I just thought it would be fun. I swear, I didn't mean any harm from this. I found out a lot. In some of their conversations via text messaging, he would tell his friend about how much he loves me and how he loves me so much, which is what I kind of expected. But when I scrolled up to the very beginning of our relationship, that is when I started to see things that I really did not expect. He was saying stuff like, "I need her," which really just kind of seemed harmless, to be honest. Then came the stuff that made me question everything. He would consistently want to know my location, and his friends would help him find me a lot. And a lot of those times, he supposedly would randomly bump into me, and all of these interactions were completely planned out. There was so much more that I don't feel like getting into, and while I still do love him, and this doesn't really change how I feel about him, overall though, I'm kind of scared. I don't know what to do. My parents, my friends, everyone loves him, and they'll be so upset if I leave him, especially my dad, since my dad and him are almost like business business partners. What should I do in this situation? The first thing you need to remember is that this is your relationship, not your family, not your friends. This is your relationship. They are not in the one-on-one with this guy. So if for whatever reason you feel like this is a bad sign and you don't feel like you're safe, then you definitely need to reevaluate your relationship with your boyfriend. There's nothing wrong with that. But it is a little scary to me that he, as well as his friends, would basically stalk you just so they could get these interactions going, just so you two could fall in love and be together. That is a little creepy if you ask me. The original poster goes on to say that he's 11 years older than her and that they've been dating officially for 4 months, but all of these random encounters happened about 3 months prior to them officially dating. The original poster also goes on to say how they feel so violated and that it just doesn't feel real that he could actually do something like that. She says that she literally could not imagine that the person that she was dating, who she thought was so perfect, would follow her around just to try and catch her for himself. And honestly, if someone did that to me, I would be freaked out as well. So your feelings are completely valid. If you honestly feel freaked out and you feel like this is too much, or if your safety might be compromised in any kind of way, then it's time to take a serious, hard look at this relationship. Because if it's not healthy and you're not safe, then in my opinion, it's time to move on, no matter how perfect things might seem. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for humiliating my ex-girlfriend in front of her entire family after I discovered that she cheated on me? First, a little bit of context. I am a 27-year-old male and my ex is now 25. This story happened approximately 3 years ago. We have been longtime friends since the equivalent of high school in my country, and when we both graduated, we didn't lose contact. We ended up dating for a year or so before she moved into my apartment, since I lived closer to her university. She was still studying when I started my first job as a web developer. I worked mostly from home while she was off at school. Since I was the only one working, I provided for about 80% of the things at home back then. Everything went great for the first 6 to 7 months until I started feeling that something was off, or I'd say she felt off. We would spend less time together. We didn't share as much affection as before, and she would look more and more irritated. I didn't jump into conclusions at first because she was also preparing exams at that time, and I thought her recent behavior was due to a lot of stress building up. She would always leave home and come back at her usual hours, so I did not notice anything. But I started to realize that she was more and more on her phone, barely spending time with me except for dinner. That is, when she was not preparing food just for herself. I reached a point where I was really questioning our relationship, so I decided to investigate. I feel bad for snooping into someone else's privacy, but today, I don't know where I would be if I didn't breach into her DMs while she was showering just to take a look. And what I saw absolutely destroyed me. She was texting with another guy, and the content left me livid. There were scandalous pictures of the both of them, if you know what I mean. There were sweet messages and arrangements to see each other when she was supposed to be studying. I even saw messages of her berating me and calling me terrible names, basically implying that I'm too stupid to ever know that anything's going on. Well, this idiot stayed stunned for a few seconds. I told her in my most normal voice that I was going to go grab something to eat while she was in the bathroom. When I was outside, I called my parents and told them everything. My mom literally cried, and my dad asked if I wanted to spend a day with him and my brother. I took a day off and I went there. I cried for a bit and I saw red, which leads right up to my revenge on my ex. My ex's parents absolutely loved me. Her dad and her got abandoned by her mom when she was younger. He got married with another woman, but still despises everything related to cheating. They sometimes invite us for dinner, and all I had to do was wait for their invitation. In the meantime, I started investigating. I learned more about the guy she was seeing, and he was also in a relationship with another woman. While she was showering, I took screenshots of my ex's DMs and sent them to me, deleting the originals from her phone. I called my dad while she was out and asked him if he could help me with her stuff. There wasn't much to move anyway since the place was mine to begin with. I left him my keys as well as my ex's parents' home address a few days before the invitation. In fact, speaking of the devil, the invitation came in. Everything goes well. I've texted my dad and he packed everything related to my ex. Her clothes, her books, everything. And he put it in his truck. I was waiting for him to text me when he was out in front of their house. When the moment came, I let it all out. I will always remember what I said because I honestly have nightmares over it. I said the following: "I'd like to thank you for letting me be a part of your life. You mean a lot to me." And at this point, their faces are bright right and they are smiling. I go on to say, I'm sorry to say that this is the last time you'll ever see me here. And at this point, they all look confused. But I say, oh, but don't worry. My soon-to-be ex-girlfriend over here will introduce you to the new man she's been seeing behind my back. And that's when I dropped this guy's name. When my ex heard his name, she turned white, almost transparent. Her parents took a few seconds to realize where I was going, and her dad looked absolutely stunned. My ex tried to speak, but she was tearing up. She tried to start saying, "Let me explain," but I shut her up with the same calming voice I had, and I said, "No need." I sent most of the evidence I had to her dad. The messages and the condescending comments about me. Her dad teared up as I looked at my ex and said, "My apartment keys." At first, she refused, but her dad humbled her with a calm, crying, but menacing voice, demanding that she give me back my keys. She protested again about her stuff, which was supposedly still at my place, but I shut her up again, saying that they were outside waiting for her, and that I'm so sorry for being the idiot she described in those text messages, because I didn't have anything to pack it up correctly. Her dad had heard enough and asked me to come outside with him. Not gonna lie, I thought he was gonna beat me up, but once we got outside, he cried and hugged me, saying that he was so sorry and that he regrets that I wasn't the one he hoped for his daughter. I told him that he was an amazing person, that if he had any issues, I'd always be around for him, and even to this day, I'm still on good terms with him. I left, and when I joined my dad, I heard some screaming in the house. I heard them yelling, stating that she had a week to find a solution to her problems because she's getting kicked out. A day later, and I had more than 40 missed calls from my ex-girlfriend. I completely ghosted her and blocked her from everywhere. I heard from her dad that she attended therapy and went to live with her best friend, who apparently blasted me on social media for being a piece of garbage, to which I replied with a screenshot from my ex calling me an idiot. Oh, and remember about the other guy and the fact that he was in a relationship? Yeah, I kind of sent everything to his girlfriend at the time. Not only did she leave him the same day I left my ex, but I've offered her to come over, and we ended up spending some time together, and nowadays we are on good terms. She is still a good friend of mine, and she found a better guy for herself. A few years later, I left my job for a better paying one, and I'm willing to start my own company. I didn't find anyone yet, but I'm focused on my career, so I don't really care. I honestly wanted to let the internet know about my story, since I kind of laugh about it now, but I do still feel a bit guilty for snooping and plotting like I did. I sometimes wish I went through direct confrontation now that my social skills improve gradually, but I need your opinion. Am I the jerk for exposing my ex-girlfriend the way that I did? I think what you did is absolutely brilliant. I can confidently say that the OP is the last person I want to double-cross in any way, shape, or form. They're gonna plot against me harder than Light Yagami from freaking Death Note. I mean, the amount of thought and detail and planning that went into this is absolutely incredible. And sure, you could have gone the confrontation route, but the impact this makes on this person's life, even after she cheated on you so flagrantly and under the assumption that you would never figure it out, in my opinion, is so worth it. She was so terrible to you. She was using you for money as well as your home, and she did not care about you. So I don't think there's any problem with exposing her secrets to the entire family. Karma 100% had it coming for her, and in my opinion, she totally deserved this. So no, I don't think you're the jerk, but I do think you might be some kind of supervillain of some kind. But what do you think? Leave a comment down below. Would you ever think of going into this much detail to try and get back at your ex-girlfriend? Let us know down below. My boyfriend wants to keep a spreadsheet of how much I owe him in money, and I honestly don't know how to feel about this. So my boyfriend and I have been together for almost a year, and 2 months ago he moved to the other side of the country. We both graduated college last year, and he got a job right out of college, making $200,000 a year. Neither of us have any debt, and he is extremely frugal with how he spends his money. I am currently unemployed, but actively interviewing. Both my grandparents have passed away within the year, and to put it simply, I haven't been okay since. I am not financially well off, and I dislike my situation living at home. My boyfriend is aware of all of this, and is offering to break his current lease to find a place for us to live together. However, he says it's unreasonable to fully support two people at the same time, and that he is happy to split costs evenly and keep a tab on the amount that I would owe, and I can repay it back over time once I get a job. I honestly don't know how to feel about this though. I'm scared that once I do get a job, I won't make nearly as much and that it'll end up taking me years just to pay him back. I don't know how to feel about this proposition in general, but I really don't want to continue with my current living situation. I truly do not want to sound entitled here, but this offer kind of scares me. I know the reasonable option is for me to decline and to keep living at home, but I don't know. Maybe this is a good offer and I just don't realize it. What should I do? This would be a simple option if I were in your shoes, because it sounds like your boyfriend is very detail-oriented, which is nice. It's good to have someone in your life who's like that because you can know for a fact that you can rely on them to get stuff done. In that same vein of thought, it honestly feels like you're setting yourself up to go into debt to this guy. You have only known him for a year, and the option of moving in also comes with this weird expectation that he's gonna lord over you with how much money you owe him. And sure, if you borrow money from somebody, you absolutely should pay it back. But it seems like from my perspective, moving in with him right now will only mean, hey, you're gonna owe him money. And I think you have it right. I don't think you're gonna land a similar job where you're making $200,000 a year and you can pay him back super easily. If anything, in my honest opinion, this kind of sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. I personally, if I was in your shoes, would not move in with him. Not until I have a job and I can pay my fair share. But I think you can go about this in a way where it's not combative and it's non-confrontational. But I think going into this without any kind of job to have as a backing, if you do end up having some kind of debt with your boyfriend, would be really, really smart in the long run. That way you can pay for yourself and pay for the bills that are allocated to you. If anything, work together with your boyfriend and figure out a good system. Because I would hate to see you spend money that you don't have and for there to be some kind of spreadsheet looming over you from your boyfriend that says, hey, you owe me this much money. I just don't think that's a good idea, and I think it's too soon to move in at this point. So wait, get a job, and have something under your belt that you can have with you when you do decide to move in. That way you can provide for yourself and have some kind of backing financially. An entitled Karen refuses to accept the fact that I'm blind, despite the fact that I have a service dog. Things got so bad that security had to separate this entitled Karen from me because she would not leave me alone. Here's what happened. So because my parents are more at risk from COVID, I've been going shopping alone more often during the pandemic. Yesterday was one of these cases. Grocery shopping is a more involved process for a blind person. I have to ask staff members to assist me. I also have my guide dog by the name of Gumbo inside the store with me. The dog in itself increases the instances of bad experiences overall. Now, during my shopping, I always get a wide array of reactions to my dog, but one in particular occurred towards the end of my shopping. I heard loud footsteps, followed by a loud screech saying,
That dog is so cute. Can I pet him?
it was obviously a small child by the voice, so I prepared myself before responding that no, my dog cannot be touched, due to him being my guide dog. Surprisingly, the child didn't act entitled, but seemed surprised and excited about a dog having a job. She asked me a few questions and then left. I honestly thought nothing of it and continued with my shopping. After I finished, I decided to stop by the food court on the way out for some lunch, so I went and made my way across the supermarket. I ordered my food, sat down, and waited. But by some cosmic gracing of bad luck, that is the exact moment that this child and their entitled parent decided to walk close by. I heard the child tell the mother about what I told her, about how my dog is working as a guide dog, that I'm blind and use him to get around. The mother isn't really saying anything, but I can sort of tell by her tone and the few words she does say that she is seeing some issue with what her daughter was told. I decided to listen in, and after the daughter finished her babbling, the mother came up to me. Now, people coming up to me is super common. I thought nothing much of it. However, the first words out of her mouth were her saying the following:
Why did you tell my daughter that you're blind?
Her tone was very harsh, very accusatory. I immediately knew what was coming, but as usual, I just put on a smile. I responded by saying, well, that's because I am blind. Your daughter asked me about my dog, so I explained what guide dogs are and why I use them. This entitled Karen then doubled down by saying,
You're not blind.
I couldn't believe what she was saying, so I just said, excuse me? The way she said it completely caught me off guard.
You're not blind. My cousin is blind, so I know what a blind person is like. You shouldn't lie about that. I think you should let my daughter pet your dog. She likes dogs.
I responded by saying, well, ma'am, not all blind people are the same. Just because you know a single blind person doesn't mean you know how all blind people are. And as I already explained, your daughter can't pet my dog due to him being a seeing eye dog. This entitled Karen then started to go off on me, saying that I'm lying, claiming that there was nothing wrong with my eyes and that I was using a phone. She then said,
"Don't you dare say you're blind to me if you're gonna show me that you're not at the same time. Why would you lie about that?"
I told her that I'm not lying. I said, my eyes looking fine have nothing to do with anything. Not every blind person's eyes look the same. Look, you're stressing me out, and I'd rather if you just left me alone. After I said that, I was hoping that things would calm down and she would just leave. But things only escalated from there.
"My daughter wants to pet your dog. She's been well behaved all through today, and it's more than reasonable to let her play with your dog."
I told her no once again, and I asked her why she wouldn't accept my answer. She responded by saying,
"You said no using that BS excuse. You're honestly starting to really upset me. I don't know who you think you are, but I happen to work for someone at this place. And if you don't stop it, I'll get security to throw you and your fake guide dog out of here."
Now, I'm sure at this point you get the picture. This went on for a good 5 minutes of her progressively getting more and more angry at the fact that I wouldn't let her daughter touch my guide dog. The daughter was actually silent through the entire thing. I don't even think she really cared that much. But this entitled Karen, however, was another story altogether. Eventually, with the argument going nowhere, she just screamed out,
"That is it. I'm going to get security right now. If you're smart, you'll be gone by the time I get back, or you'll regret it."
I snorted at her small fit and heard her huff and storm off. By that time, my food had arrived, so I just started eating. I didn't really believe she would go get security, but with entitled Karens like this, you simply cannot be sure what they will or won't do. About 5 minutes or so later, she returned. I heard her stomping forward in my direction from about 15 feet away, and she was raging on to a security guard.
"Look, that's her. You see? She's sitting there with a dog. She says it's a guide dog, but she's not blind. You have to kick her out. Dogs aren't allowed in here."
I sighed and removed my earbud to prepare for the incoming ordeal. A deep male voice sounded from a few feet away in front of me, and he sounded like he had just about had enough. The security guard said, "Miss, is this your service dog?" I said, "Yes, it is. He is a seeing eye dog. I'm allowed to take him in here. I have a copy of the appropriate law if you really need it." The security guard said, "No, that's fine. This woman is saying you aren't disabled though, is that true?" I responded by saying no. She's just angry that I didn't let her daughter touch my service dog. I honestly don't know why she cares so much. The entitled Karen jumped in at that moment and called me a liar. She said,
"I told you, I have a blind cousin. Don't try to tell me I don't understand blind people, because I do."
I directed my attention to the security guard and I said, "Look, I've tried to explain to her that one blind person doesn't represent all blind people, but she doesn't seem to get it. Could you please ask her to leave me alone? I just want to eat in peace." The security guard then asked me, "So you are blind?" And I said, "Yes, I am." He then says something that absolutely blew my mind. He asked me if I could prove that I'm blind in any kind of way. I asked him how on earth I could possibly do that, and why should I? The security guard then says, "Well, it's just that she is saying one thing and you're saying another thing. I don't exactly know who to believe. But yeah, I see how proving you're blind doesn't really work." He then looked at this entitled Karen and said, "Why is it exactly that you think she is lying?" The entitled Karen then says,
"Are you serious right now? Are you thick in the head? Look at her eyes. They're not white or cloudy like blind people's are. She is literally looking at her phone."
The security guard then looked at me, asking for my response to this accusation. I told him that maybe her cousin has those eye symptoms, but not every blind person does. Those symptoms are caused by diseases like cataracts, which I don't have. As for the phone, devices have been accessible to blind people for years. I find it surprising that she has a cousin who is blind and doesn't know that. And after the entitled Karen did not take that as a good answer, I further explained that I have a basic light perception. I can detect light and I can direct my eyes to it out of habit because that's where my hands are occupied. I then said, "Look, it's not my job to educate you on what you don't know. Sir, please, just ask her to leave me alone. I don't care if she doesn't believe me. You don't need to stand here and mediate a back and forth as if we're going to agree somehow. I just like her to stop talking to me and leave me in peace. I'm feeling extremely harassed." I was hoping this would be the end of it. I genuinely did. But this security guard still said that he can't know for sure if I'm blind. And at this point, I was completely dumbfounded. He was using the fact that this entitled Karen had a cousin who was blind as some kind of evidence against me actually being blind. I then told this security guard that if you're not going to get this lady away from me, then I guess I'm just gonna have to leave. Thanks for failing to protect a disabled patron. I stood up to leave, with my guide dog getting up to guide me. I took a few steps and suddenly felt someone grab hold of my harness tightly and pulled me to a stop. This entitled Karen had actually grabbed my harness and said,
"Wait right there. I said I wanted you to let my daughter pet the dog. Then you can leave."
At this point, I was manic. I screamed, "No, get off my harness right now." Now, understand, grabbing my harness is akin to someone taking away your eyes. This entitled Karen was taking away my ability to navigate. So I panicked. This has only happened to me once before, and I panicked then too. I attempted to pull my harness handle back, all the while she was also screaming in my ear. But I wasn't listening. I was too panicked to listen to what was probably about her stupid daughter. The security guard was fumbling around fairly uselessly, as you could expect. Thankfully, a second security guard came up and said, "What is going on?" I then screamed at the top of my lungs, "She's taking my guide dog. Help me. She won't let go." But this entitled Karen denied it all. She said,
"No, she's supposed to let my daughter pet her dog. This guy said so."
At this point, I assumed she was talking to the first security guard. And as you could have guessed it, the guard didn't respond. But the way the conversation went, it seemed like he non-verbally indicated that he hadn't said that. The second security guard said, "Miss, let go of that lady's dog right now or I'll escort you out." The entitled Karen then jumped into the same act as before.
"No, she is not blind. This dog isn't a real service dog. Don't just jump in and assume you know what's going on."
At this point, I had calmed down slightly so I could speak in a more coherent manner. "Please, just get off of me. I want to leave. I don't feel safe. Leave me alone." Thankfully, the second security guard then finally caught on, and that's when I felt the woman's hand being forcefully removed from the harness handle. As soon as I was free, I immediately commanded Gumbo to lead me to the exit. We walked quickly away as I heard this entitled Karen screaming loudly behind me. I was still somewhat panicked, but I was able to calm myself down as I hurried towards the exit. It was so chaotic that I very nearly forgot my shopping where I left it, at customer services. I left, I called a taxi, and I came home. It has really stuck with me for the last couple of days. But the worst part is that these types of interactions are an almost daily occurrence. Blind people are the targets of constant harassment in public, and this woman just went farther than she should have by physically assaulting me and harassing me. I know I could have gotten her arrested, but honestly, I was just so panicked, I wanted to get out of that situation as soon as possible. So why am I telling this story? In short, I wanted to spread awareness. It's important for people to know more about the blind experience and what blind people have to deal with. It's also super important to say, if you're ever a witness to a situation like I just described, intervene. Had the second guard not stepped in and intervened, the situation would have been a lot worse. This story's crazy to me. I honestly can't believe that this person had to deal with that. The fact that someone would actually act like this towards a blind person, as if they already don't have a big disadvantage in life, is just disgusting. And I am utterly shocked that this original poster didn't have this lady arrested. If I were them, I would call mall security and try and get that first security guard fired. They tried to force this blind person to prove that they were blind. How disgusting and toxic is that? Hopefully this original poster never has to deal with anything like this again, because this type of treatment, all because you're blind, is absolutely unacceptable. My boyfriend is actively gaslighting me, and honestly, I'm getting sick of it and I don't know what to do. So I'm a 24-year-old female and my boyfriend is 25. We have been together for 2 years and everything is really good between us. I never see anything that's really wrong in our relationship until I dig into it and really start to think about things. For me, I am an overthinker. My last relationship did not end well, and even though my boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years, I still have some minor trust issues. So months ago, when we first started dating, my boyfriend was holding his phone, and I glanced over and I saw that he had a text message from one of his ex-girlfriends. And after seeing this, it put me in a very bad mood, pretty much for the rest of the night. Eventually, he noticed and asked what was wrong, and after some time, I told him what I saw. We talked it out, I started crying, and he reassured me and calmly talked about it. And he said that they are just on friendly terms. No big deal. I told him just to tell me about it, that I promise I will be more upset if he didn't tell me and I suspected something than for him to just straight up tell me. He then said that he shouldn't have to report to me about everyone he talks to. I agreed and told him that's not what I meant, but to just be open about this situation. So months go by and everything is okay again. But then a couple of months ago, ago, almost the same thing happened, and we were out drinking with friends, and someone calls him, and it's like 11 o'clock at night. He says it's just a spam phone call. Well, after we woke up the next morning, he tells me his other ex texted him and wanted me and him to go out the night before and go drinking with her friends. But he didn't respond until that day. I had no bad reaction to him telling me this, but a couple of days later, I put 2 and 2 together and realized it was her who called him at 11 o'clock. So weeks go by and we started drinking, and I bravely just jokingly brought this up, and I said, I know you didn't want to tell me because it would have ruined my night, but why couldn't you just tell me that it was her instead of lying to me? Or say it's no one instead of just saying that it's spam. After that, we got into a fight, which involved both of us yelling and me crying once again. He tells me I'm gaslighting him, and that since I had a bad reaction before, he isn't going to tell me these things. I told him I will never bring it up again. I keep telling this man that it will bother me more when he doesn't tell me things. So here we are today, and nothing is wrong. But yesterday he said the same thing randomly. I can't even remember what we were talking about. Neither of us were upset, and it was something random that we said as we were walking around the house. He said that he won't tell me something if he thinks I'll have a bad reaction to it. My problem is, I feel like we are partners. We talk about being together for a long time, including starting a family and living our own life together. This has now led me to the idea, as well as the question of what else is he hiding from me? Can he be talking to random girls, or even girls that he knows, and he won't even tell me? When is enough enough? How do I tell him again and again that I need him to talk to me and that I won't get upset? I know that I won't get upset because he is being honest and coming to me and talking to me about it. It is all so confusing, and I'm just not sure what to do. It seems like the OP is trying to manifest that their boyfriend is cheating on them, when I don't think there's any evidence to really suggest that. It seems like you're trying to control things to an extent that you have zero control over. And from the sounds of it, it doesn't really sound like he's gaslighting you, to be honest. I feel like you're kind of overreacting just a little bit, in my opinion. I can understand that there's some kind of insecurity between you and your boyfriend, and obviously you don't want him to leave you, but it seems like you're starting to toe the line between being actually worried about something that's actually going wrong, as opposed to just being suspicious of something going wrong. I think if anything, maybe read the messages themselves, or at least request to see what he's texting about, to at least absolve some of the anxiety you have towards the situation. I mean, honestly, just because he's texting his ex does not mean he's gonna try and get with them. So unless there's any kind of signs that he might be going behind your back or doing things that are nefarious, I just don't think it would be healthy to try and jump on this train of, oh no, he's definitely cheating on me, because that's not healthy and that's not gonna help anybody. My neighbor rings my doorbell at least twice a day, and it's starting to drive me nuts. I'm at my wit's end and I simply don't know what to do. So just a little bit of context, it's just me and my girlfriend living in this house that we bought about 4 months ago. We have a neighbor who's very friendly and came to introduce himself and his wife. And at the time, I thought nothing of it. I honestly thought it was just a friendly gesture, but pretty soon he started coming over every single day. Then eventually he came by twice a day. Then he started to ring my doorbell a total of 4 times a day. At this point, it has now been like this for months, where he frantically rings my doorbell about 4 to 5 times in a row, and he does this about 2 to 3 times a day. I will even catch him sometimes peeking in my window to see if I'm in the living room. Sometimes he'll also sit on my porch and just talk about nonsense that doesn't need to be discussed. I don't even respond to half of the things that he says sometimes, and I just give him a casual, lazy response of saying, I don't want to be bothered by this garbage. Something subtle enough that anyone with a clear mind would be able to pick up on. But this guy just doesn't seem to get it. I don't even answer the door sometimes, and I try to make up excuses, explaining to him whether in the moment or later that maybe I was cleaning or something like that. But he literally doesn't get the clue that I'm busy or I want to be left alone. I should also note that he suffered a terrible car accident that ruined some of his mental abilities to some degree, as he repeats himself a lot in a conversation. And I wonder sometimes if it affects his short-term memory and he forgets he even came over to visit me. But his wife lets him do this without any issue and doesn't even say anything to him. Like, do you not realize how invasive this behavior is? But to his credit, he has been very kind in some ways, like bringing over some fresh fruits and some vegetables from his garden. He has also referred me to an excellent local doctor and hooked me up with a landscaper to help me take care of my garden. But it seems to me that he only does this as some premise for his own personal entertainment. And at this point, I simply can't take it anymore. I just want my privacy back. I'm at the point where I'm actually fantasizing about how I want to to absolutely explode my built-up frustration on this guy the next time he comes to my house to disturb me. But I also don't want to make an enemy of someone who's across the street and clearly mentally unstable. And at this point, I'm unsure exactly of what to say because he just seems so unaware of anything even surrounding him. Please, how can I go about addressing this? What should I do? Having a bad neighbor is literally a nightmare, so I empathize with this person completely. And worst of all, they're invading your privacy and looking through your windows. I think I would lose my mind if someone was doing that to me. It sounds like this guy just simply doesn't get it, but maybe his wife will. If I were in your shoes, I would go talk to the wife. I would say, hey, I appreciate you coming by, but you're starting to cause problems in my life. This might be a good way for her to step in and say, okay, we need to leave them alone because this behavior is not appropriate. It's not okay for someone to come up to your house and ring your doorbell multiple times throughout the day just to get your attention. It's really disturbing and honestly, it's a little bit creepy. Another idea that I had is possibly building a fence or some kind of barrier between you and your neighbor. You can make it very clear in a passive-aggressive way that no, I don't want visitors and no, I don't want you at my house. I think ultimately though, you do need to have this conversation with them. You need to make it very clear that hey, this isn't appropriate and I don't like this. Maybe you're right. Maybe this guy just isn't completely there, or worst of all, he might not care altogether, which is not fair for you. Regardless, you need to put your foot down and say no more. Please get off of my property and stop coming over every single day. You have tried to be subtle, you've tried to be nice, but now it's time to be mean because this is your privacy we're talking about, and these neighbors are clearly violating that, and in my opinion, you should not have to deal with that. But what do you think? Leave a comment down below. Have you ever had a neighbor like this that was so obnoxious that you just didn't know what to do? Let us know down below. My girlfriend gives me the silent treatment after a fight and then yells at me if I try to break that silence. And now I honestly don't know what to do. My girlfriend used to do this quite a bit. In fact, every time we fought. And eventually I asked her to stop because that stonewalling behavior gave me anxiety and made me question my self-worth. She stopped, and for a few months we would solve problems in a different way. We would do things together and not against each other. She usually needs some time to cool down after an argument, but now she's back to doing what she used to do before. We fought last night about something stupid, and the entire day she's been ignoring me and avoiding me ever since this morning, and it is now 8:00 p.m. For example, if I go to one room, she moves to the other, and this just continues to repeat over and over again. And the few times that I've tried talking to her and asking her to talk to me and stop because she was getting back to that behavior that made me anxious and really hurt my feelings, she would end up yelling at me to leave her alone, telling me that she doesn't care if this is harmful for the relationship. She also said she's leaving today because she doesn't want to be here and doesn't want to see me. As a side note, she doesn't technically live with me, but was spending time with me until Wednesday at my house. The way she spoke to me felt completely humiliating and demeaning. I honestly thought we left this in the past and that we moved on from this type of behavior, but now she has me questioning everything. We even agreed months ago that if she was upset about something, she would approach me about the subject in a calm manner and we would discuss it. I just don't understand why she's drastically come back to doing this really rude and painful behavior. This is all so confusing and I honestly don't know what to do. This is really toxic behavior. If my significant other treated me like that, especially after explaining to her in detail why this behavior hurts my feelings so much, it makes you feel anxious, it questions your self-worth as a human being, it does not feel good. But in this instance, it's really important to note that she's choosing to do it anyways. Your significant other is doing the one thing that she knows will hurt you the most, and she's doing it repeatedly. Like she even said she doesn't care if this damages the relationship. That is super toxic and very immature. If that happened to me, that would make me question if she even cared about me. I can understand if this is someone's like automatic response when it comes to dealing with confrontation or anything along those lines, but to obviously and very clearly choose to do it still, even after your partner said, hey, this really hurts my feelings, is unbelievably toxic and is not something that's going to lead to a healthy relationship. It is incredibly immature and she's just trying to hurt you, which is really not fair for you. I think the one benefit here is that she doesn't live with you, because otherwise this would be every waking moment. It's bad enough that it seems like she holds grudges over the dumbest things, and any kind of argument leads to her stonewalling you out of her life. But maybe with her leaving Wednesday, this can give you some time to reflect on what happened and try and make amends and make up to her in some way. I think regardless of what you do, a conversation needs to be had about this. You need to re-explain to her that this is really hurtful behavior and it is not cohesive to a healthy relationship, because otherwise this is just going to repeat in the future and you're just going to feel like garbage all all over again, and you definitely do not deserve that. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.